Yo, come one, come all, nothing but love, nothing but respect. You know what we do, what we don't, what we is, what we isn't, and what we is here today, bringing you guys and girls chapter 1042 live discussion of One Piece. I got with me today Eggs for Brekkie, aka Daniel. Say hello, my guy. Oh, try that again. I am not getting your audio. Hang on. On the stream. Keep talking. I cannot see you. Chat, let me know if you can hear Eggs for Brekkie. I'm not getting a report from his sound. This is not... I had a whole problem last night as well. All my settings were changed for some reason. Caused a hell of a lot of interesting issues. Alright. Give me 2 seconds. We'll go to an intermission and see if we can fix it.
Hello, hello.
Alright, we're back. I'm pretty sure it's working now. Kuma, let us know. Can you hear Eggs for Brekkie? Brekkie? Sound off, my guy.
Hello, hello.
I can definitely see movement. I think what it is me playing MMOs has changed type of audio from my headset to my TV speaker.
Right.
And so for some reason, I hadn't changed it back because the headset still works. I can still hear you through the headset, but it changes the audio channel to the TV.
I getcha.
So I don't think it was quite registering, but I think we're all good now. Yo, good to see you, Kuma, already. So a little bit of an announcement. We are probably going to start streaming these discussions today instead of tomorrow, as we normally do. However, today's a bit earlier, then we'll probably stream them on Saturdays. But yeah, we'll be making that shift just to stop schedule conflicts. Am I right?
Yep.
Alrighty. Now, okay, let's... Fuck. Where do we start with this chapter, man? Can I just... Can we just, like, give a moment and be like, yo, how... I'm impressed with how utilized this CP0 member is. Can I just say that, like, straight off the bat? Like...
Yeah.
He's not necessarily strong. Like, he's strong, but he's not necessarily like, you know, he's not a Luffy, he's not a Kaido. He's just a dude that has a set basic level of skills and he thinks.
Yeah, exactly. He's like smart, tactical, and like very, very highly skilled. He's not like a powerhouse in the sense of like Kaido and Big Mom.
And I love it. I love the change in
too.
dynamic with him because, I mean, first things first, right? For people that have been making the argument going, oh, he's been getting his ass handed to him by Drake and that, I've been the advocate for the longest time saying throughout most of Onigashima, not all of it, but most of Onigashima, when we cut away from a fight and cut back to a fight, it tends to be in the exact same moment we left. There are a few exceptions. A good example is this chapter with Luffy and Kaido. because the last chapter ended with Snake Man. This chapter opens up with Bound Man. But...
Oh, wait. I thought it opened up with Snake Man.
No, it opens up with Bound Man. Scroll...
So he's in Bound Man doing, like, Snake Man punches?
Yes, because remember, he could always do that in Bound Man. Because he did the Python attacks against Dofi.
Right, okay. Because when he gets blasted through the way that he gets out of it, he says Bound Man, and then he kind of like jumps out of his fire breath.
So what?
I figured that was him turning from Snake Man into Bound Man to get out of it.
No.
Now that I look at it, he does look like he's in Bound Man, yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's in Bound Man because he looks a lot bulkier.
Yeah, it does look that. Yeah.
But what I think happens is he actually gets knocked out of Gear 4 when he gets hit. And so he gets knocked out of Gear 4.
Right. So when he's in the fire breath, he's out of Gear 4. Then he goes back into it and gets out.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I get that.
So it's like he got winded by the dragon breath, because if you look at the panels where he's been knocked through the island, you see his arms and his legs, and he's back to human size again. And then he skywalks off to the side, and then screams Bound Man, and then flies back up.
Yeah.
But this is one of the only few moments in the arc where we've actually seen like a scene cut away and cut back, and we know time has passed. You know what I mean? Whereas, like, with the ex-Drake and the CP0 member and the Apu thing, right? We saw both. So we saw this guy finger pistol Apu and drop him. Go to finger pistol Drake, gets a counter attack by Apu that was off guard. So that's the only damage he took prior to this, right? He then proceeds to drop Drake with a finger pistol while Apu runs away, and while the other member one-shots the number. Then Izo drops down. Izo and the other CP member trade with pretty much a one-shot each. And then this guy gets up and he's like, ugh, what the hell? Drake runs him through the back. He shaves, turns around, one-shots Drake again.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. He's not getting dumpstered by Drake in any means at all.
I'm just shitting myself. This man shaved while impaled.
He's a weapon, yeah.
Like,
I think if anything, this scene of him getting stabbed by Drake and then turning around and stabbing him back, this to me hypes him up more.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of people are saying that it like downplays him, that like, well, he got goofed on by Drake. But here's the thing, Drake is like really good in terms of the standing of the Supernova. He's at a pretty high level relative to the rest of them.
mean,
and he's been goofed on this arc.
Not just that, but you guys have got to acknowledge Drake was behind this man, and Drake's speed blitz stabs him in a hybrid form to do damage. Like, this dude has to go high, like his strongest form, and sprint at this man to get a hit in.
Yeah.
And then immediately gets dumpstered on. Drake has been two-shot by this man twice. And, like, I just got to say, like, the thing that's impressing me is, like, this guy's impaled, and he's still able to just shave. Like, disappear. Like, nothing happened. You know what I mean? Kuma says, a more brain and meticulous approach over Braun's situation. To be honest, I kind of like the CP0 guy isn't one of the strongest members of the agency. So this emphasizes how cunning the world government is when it comes to serious events like Wano. I agree 100%. And this gives me more hype because I've said for the longest, we had things like the Blackbeard Pirates running away from CP, right? I've never necessarily claimed that CP has someone as strong as a Yonko, but I've claimed that the agency overall is as strong as a Yonko crew, at least the top 10 commanders. And what we're seeing here seems to be, like, not just because Drake's a member, but because, quite literally, like, all the members seem to be as strong as a division commander of some capacity. I mean, even one of the weaker, like, I shouldn't say weaker because he's still masked, but even one of the lesser impressive members traded with Izo, who's got a 510 million berry bounty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, like, I'll go back to last chapter if I need to, but, like, the super impressive thing about that is, if you go back and look at it, Izo got taken out with a single finger pistol. The thing that Izo did to take out this guy was an advanced armament haki Rio gunshot to the torso. Because you see the bullet, but you also see a massive explosion of energy on the outside of the panel. So, like, it's not like the normal gunfire, you know what I mean? It was like a supercharged up shot. Sure. And it hit him point blank in the torso, and while he's still getting blown through the guts, he still proceeds to one-shot him with a pistol. Like, and this is the thing, right? I don't know if this hurts or helps power scaling in One Piece, but it is really interesting to me, because you got people like Don Junchao that split continents, and they've got ridiculous potency and stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. And people like Luffy in Gear 3 with Armament Haki are overwhelming him in that capacity, right? And we don't get a lot of it in One Piece where people miss a shot and they just destroy the ground. It happens from time to time, but not too often, because what tends to be the thing is, like, people are a lot more durable than they look, so they tank a lot more of that damage, and it doesn't really affect the environment around them that much. But you got to think, if these people can, like, not all of them, but if some of these people are taking, like, island or continent level attacks from time to time, or massively potent things, like we saw a Borrow Breath just delete mountains and delete a hole through Onigashima, no different to an Elbas Spear, right?
Yeah.
If we've got people tanking these things and a finger pistol still putting them down, you just got to think about how much potency is going into that finger pistol. And from what we're seeing, when these guys use finger pistol, they're going for joints or for lethal areas as well. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it would be useless against a Yonko who seemingly can survive without their organs, but it's like, he throat jabs Drake here after hitting him in the shoulder the chapter before. Or a couple of chapters ago, you know what I mean? So it's like, if I'm going to take him out, I'm going to, like, break his arm to the point where, like, he can't use his arm. You know what I mean? I'll go for joints, so he can't combat. And I know it doesn't really seem that way, considering Drake seems clean here, but you got to think, like, Drake's an ancient zone, and the only damage he's taken is a little bit of damage from Queen at the beginning of the raid. Then he mostly avoided all of Apu's attacks, and then has just gotten dumpstered on by CP0 here.
Thing, like, I feel like a lot of people have this idea of, oh, this is how strong people are.
Yeah.
And then, like, if somebody beats that person, it's like everyone goes down a tier. To me, this just picked everybody up a tier.
Yeah.
Like, to me, I have so much more respect for Izo now. I have a bit more respect for Drake, even just for getting back up and coming back to fight again.
Yep.
And then I elevate Izo even above Drake now in my mind, but I don't know how, like, hardcore I will go on that. Like,
honestly,
I wouldn't really fight that point.
I could see the fight for it, because, I mean, there are outliers in the Whitebeard Alliance, right? But when Oda's in the past had to pick people of the Whitebeard Pirates crew to emphasize, it's really interesting that he picked Marco, Jozu, Vista, and Izo.
Yeah.
On top of Ace, you know what I mean? Because we know that the Whitebeard Pirates Division Commander status didn't represent strength, but I could see a genuine argument that Oda singling out those 5 people consistently could imply that they're the top 5 of the Whitebeard Pirate crew. And that
argument,
that wouldn't necessarily hurt any perspective of it. Because you got to think, Izo's out here with a higher bounty than everyone but Who's Who in the Topi Robo. You know what I mean?
True.
And we know that he was a swordsman that learnt Rio and then shifted from using swords to pistols because he was such a good shot, right?
Yeah.
And I can't say that we've never necessarily ever seen, like, advanced Rio from him. Like, how we've typically seen it with brawlers. I just genuinely can't say that. But it's implied.
Honestly, like, you would put that CP0 agent a similar vein to Who's Who, because Who's Who seemingly had, like, the raw talent, but because he got kicked out early, he hasn't had the training.
But this is
kind of put them on, like, a similar vein together.
This is also where we get really interesting, though, because Who's Who's got a pretty damn good zone to stack up his abilities, whereas these guys,
as far as we know, they don't have one.
Yeah, which, I mean. And I remember we had this disagreement about Rob Lucci a while back, and we went back and we confirmed that Rob Lucci is this guy's superior, according to the official Viz translations, right?
Yeah.
So, the fact that this guy is beating people like Drake, his peers are beating people just directly under who's who, and he is seemingly, I mean, I'll just say it outright. Apart from the craziness of Kaido having Future Sight later this chapter, this guy speed blitzes two Future Sight users and interferes in their fight. Now, you can say that might be because they weren't focused on him, which is a completely valid discussion point. But it's very similar to when Kuma got in between Rayleigh and Kizaru, is it not?
Yeah, true.
Like, it in terms of...
Here's the thing. I absolutely do think that CP0 member could, like, speed blitz in and sit next to... Like into the middle of them during a fight. I could see that happening. But I would never think that he'd be able to, like, catch Luffy's arm or anything like that. I think like the speed is there. I think he can do this.
I'm actually getting to a really weird point where I'm looking at some speed feats in One Piece, and I'm almost getting to the point where I'm starting to downplay some people's speeds almost in my mind, where I'm like, anyone that uses shave as a technique, I'm sort of starting to look at that like that's a hard lock bracket of speed that's shared between all people that use that speed in that technique. Because you know how I've been talking about like the difference between movement speed and attack speed lately, and how Kaido's movement speed for the most part is pretty slow, but when he does a Thunder Bagua, his attack speed surpasses Gear 4. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the same thing with shave, where it's like people that use shave, when they're moving generally, they're not all that fast. But is everyone that's using shave roughly the same speed when they use shave? And it just depends on who's got the better perception to keep using shave in that capacity, you know what I mean? Because, I mean, if we go back, right, I mean, Luffy only learnt shave in Enies Lobby, right? Because of Gear 2, essentially. Gear 2, he brought out right at the end of the fight against Moria. And then pretty much pre-time skip was over. Post-time skip, Shave, I mean, he was able to outpace the pacifistas. He's practically been able to outpace everyone up until Doflamingo. And even against Doflamingo, Doflamingo said, you're fast enough in Gear 2 with Shave to hit me. You just don't hit hard enough. You know what I mean? And then once you hit Doflamingo, realistically, Luffy and... Because Doflamingo, in my eyes, and call me crazy, but Doflamingo is already in that commander range. So having Shave or having that level of speed already puts you up to, but not in, commander range speeds, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Which, considering the Tokiropa are all under that, I mean, this seems like a rough ballpark speed. It's a consistent thing. But then even in that commander range of speed, right, arguably, a lot of the commanders actually aren't as fast or able to keep up with Shave, but they are able to perceive it and counter it, if that makes a discernible distinction there, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so what I would mean by that is like, Luffy versus Katakuri. Remember that scene where Luffy shaves past him and Katakuri kicks him in the face? Is that Katakuri's faster than Luffy, or is that I know where you're going to be and I just kick?
Yeah, I think it's just side, essentially.
So then it like starts to raise a question where... And there's a big debate on it where like the difference between movement speed, combat speed, and reaction speed. You know what I'm saying? But it's like... Yeah. To me, I'm starting to like... I know some people go crazy with scaling and stuff like that. They're like, Luffy's 700 times the speed of light because he was faster than this person, and then he got this much times stronger, and then he fought this person who was able to outpace him, and then he got faster than... You know what I mean? Instead of that, I'm just like, look at it and go, the technique is the technique that lets you ballpark that same range. And it seems pretty consistent across these characters, which is impressive, because arguably the Yonko have high attack speeds, but they don't have the ability to shave necessarily, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So they might not have that same level of overall speed, but they can react to it and counter it in their own ways because they've got higher perception than other people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But holy shit, I feel so sorry for this CP0 guy at the end of this chapter. Do you?
He is going to get fucking rolled.
Bro, he has.
Here's the thing. I think next chapter he's gonna come out and he's gonna be kind of like hoping that like Kaido doesn't care that much.
Yeah,
He's like, oh, I helped you take down your enemy, and Kaido's gonna be like, you're dead, kid.
So I'm wondering if this guy's gonna try and run.
Oh yeah, surely. I mean, I don't know. It might even just be that like he thinks he's fine and that Kaido won't retaliate because he's like, oh, I helped you out, and then he just gets smashed.
Nah.
Like he just gets stunned.
I think he knows and he understands the situation because last chapter when they said, "Can you go kill Luffy in the fight between Luffy and Kaido?" and he's like, "Why do I have to get involved in an altercation between those two?"
Yeah, but that could also just be like he thinks he's like he might not be able to pull it off.
Yes,
he might just die.
And that's perfectly fine.
And not that like Kaido will get mad at him for doing it.
But I think it could also be because
Could be that
it was.
Kaido will get mad.
I think it was established earlier on in the arc that Kaido has like a war cry when he wins. Maybe I'm misremembering that. I feel like maybe that was something that Mr. Morge said in one of his videos. But I think there was something that said from Big Mum earlier on that like I haven't heard Kaido's victory cry yet.
Okay.
Implying when Kaido normally wins a fight.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
When Kaido normally wins a fight, he announces it. You know what I mean? Especially if it's against a high tier person. I think what'll happen here is if that's somewhat common knowledge to some higher ups and some intelligent groups like CP0, I think he's going to be aware that this was a suicide mission and that him taking out Luffy in this fight is going to result in him dying. And it's either going to be he stands there and takes it or he has to just try and leg it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, by the way, we haven't talked since last... We haven't talked about the last chapter either.
Nah.
So, it's Luffy's fruit, yeah?
I pretty much said on stream that, yeah, it has to be Luffy's fruit, especially... Okay, I'll say this.
Like, it's possible to argue that it's not, but I think it's almost
it is purposely being set up to be Luffy's fruit. Now, if it is Luffy's fruit, is a different story, because this could be a massive red herring by Oda. You know what I mean?
But there's not really much argument right now. Like, it could be a twist. Yeah, you're right.
Because did you hear the
not
part?
Really much argument right now for you to say that it's not.
Did you hear the part in this chapter against that Kaido said to Luffy?
Yeah, like your fruit shouldn't be able to do that.
Yes, he's altering the trajectory at whim. Rubber shouldn't be able to do this. Now we always chalk that up to him using Geppo while he's stretching.
Yes.
But maybe.
It's also never explicitly been said that he's using Geppo.
Yes. Speed teas in One Piece have many brackets that vary. For example, Thunder Bugwire is a blitz move that the user is only fast in the moment. Then there's running speed where Luffy goes gear second and at a pace that is steadily consistent. Kaido's pride will not allow a secondary robbery of a secondary fight at this point. I actually, when I got off stream, and I think I tweeted about this, right? I've got a question for you, chat and Daniel. So Luffy gets KO'd this chapter.
Seemingly.
Kaido's obviously pissed. Kaido will either deal with CP0 or he won't, right? I raised in my reaction last night that Kaido might just sit down and wait for Luffy to wake up and then pick up the fight after. And that might shock a lot of people because it's like they're expecting Kaido to come down and declare himself the winner, right? But I
agree. I think that he won't feel like the winner, and I think that he'll want to actually fight Luffy again from scratch from the start. But my only question there is like the world government is currently moving in.
Yep.
There's still the presence of what happens with this CP0 agent. There's the whole like Robin thing. So the thing is that it's possible that Kaido wants to do that, but just can't.
So
because like all this other crap happens.
So that is a possibility, right? Both of those are possibilities. That he either has to keep moving because of what's happening, or he just sits down and everyone's shocked because they know that because with observation haki they can sense that he's won.
Yeah.
But he's not coming down. You know what I mean? There could be that added threat level of like, can we
Yeah, that's true.
do we escape or
This,
not? Like, what's gonna happen? He's just waiting.
yeah, that's the thing. Like, what if like all the like what happens if all the Straw Hats can sense that Luffy's lost, and then but then Kaido's just still sitting at the top? They're just like, do we leave? Like, do we just abandon our captain?
Yep,
Because like we can't fight him. Like,
exactly. I'm gonna raise an excellent point though, because it's already been done once this arc. What if Luffy gets the drugs from the minks and gets full health but double damage?
okay. Like a quick final fight.
Mm-hmm. So Luffy's already said he's at the complete limit and he won't have another Gear 4 in him, right?
Not gonna
Zoro.
lie, the thing that you sent me where it said Gear 5 on his cheek
Yep.
or on his temple, to me that's like when the fight kicks off again, Luffy's going Gear 5, right? Like that's where this is all leading to.
Yep.
He's gonna figure out like what's going on with his fruit during this like little downtime of him being knocked out. Maybe like Kaido's gonna say some things or something like that, and then next time they fight, like it's a fully fair fight. They're both fully recovered, and Luffy's gonna, having learnt about his fruit, go Gear 5, and then it'll be like an actual pure. Like Kaido isn't tired, Luffy isn't tired. This is who's stronger. You know what I mean? Like an actual raw fight.
So I have the question here then, right? If they're gonna do that, how is Luffy going to be fully healed to have another go? Like, is Luffy gonna heal up, and is Kaido gonna heal up, or are they just gonna be both still exhausted but get enough energy to go one more round? Because there's a very big difference in distinction there, isn't there?
Yeah,
because if Luffy
true.
gets full health and comes back and Kaido hasn't healed up, I think we can all admit Kaido would still have beaten Luffy at full health, if that makes sense.
Well, that depends on if it's a Gear 5 or not, because the way that I see it happening is like if Luffy goes into Gear 5, it'll be kind of like a Dofi scenario, where it's like Luffy is obviously stronger than him in Gear 5, but you know he probably can't hold on to Gear 5 for long. Same thing with Dofi. It's like Luffy in Gear 4 is obviously stronger than Dofi, but he can't hold on to Gear 4 for that long. And during the first clash, it was like Dofi just tanked it for the whole duration.
What I'll say in repercussion to that, though, is one, it's only taken until this chapter for Kaido to use Future Sight, which he's been capable of the entire time, which means...
No. Hang on. People are misunderstanding. The mode, the drunk mode that he goes into is called Thieving Drunk, right? It's like a copycat mode. He stole Future Sight.
No. He goes into Flirty Drunk, uses Future Sight, and then goes into Thieving Drunk. And he...
No. He goes into Yeah, it says he goes, oh, I have Future Sight too, and then the next panel is literally Thieving Drunk because he's taking Future Sight.
He uses Future Sight, sees where all Luffy's hits are, turns snaky, does like the Katakuri thing where he just dodges through everything, and then he goes Thieving Drunk phase, right, where he bites Luffy, because remember, this could be a callback to when Momo bit him. Because he uses the Future Sight fully before Thieving Drunk phase.
No, I'll have to double check that.
Because it goes Flirty Drunk phase.
Then what's Thieving Drunk then? What does that phase do?
Well, Thieving Drunk phase, what does he do? He darts around, bites Luffy, flies up in the air, and then, arguably, actually, Thieving Drunk phase could also be in... If it's not just in connection to Momo, it could also be in connection to actually Law and Kid. Because Kaido does to Luffy what Law and Kid do to Big Mom. And Kaido sensed what was happening in the fight with Law and Kid and Big Mom. Remember? Because what does Kaido do here? He does exactly what Law and Kid did to Big Mom, where he gets him over a hole, and then he shoots an energy blast that shoots him through all of Onigashima.
No, I think the Thieving Drunk is the future. Because look, like if you look at it, looking at it now, it's like he stands there and he goes, "Yeah, you're not the only one who can see the future." And then as Luffy's punches land, he's like teleported because he's using Future Sight, and then it says Thieving Drunk phase on the same panel as it says Dodge. right? It has like the kanji for dodge, and then it says thieving drunk
Well,
phase.
I
So
would.
him dodging it is his thieving drunk.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then that's no different to when Luffy just uses Future Sight to dodge Kaido. But we know this indicates that Kaido's fully capable of Future Sight before this. You know what I mean?
I think he's fully capable of it. I think what happens is he has this thieving drunk phase where he can basically take abilities of other people and use them. So he can like take the haki ability. So for example, like if he didn't have Conqueror's, or I don't know how Conqueror's works. It might be like unique among all other things. But let's say he didn't have Rio. He could use thieving drunk phase and then take Luffy and then start using Luffy's Rio.
Well, I would say. See, it's hard, right? Because if you actually go through the whole thing, the thieving drunk phase. So, Kaido specifically goes flirty drunk phase, flirts with Luffy, uses the Future Sight, swings past him, and then goes thieving drunk phase at the end of Future Sight. You could say it's because he did the dodge, but he goes thieving drunk phase at the end of that. Then he bites Luffy like Momo, does the Dragon Breath like Law and Kid versus Big Mom, and then proceeds to, after that, start fighting Luffy using advanced Conqueror's Rio attacks instead of just advanced Conqueror's attacks.
That's true. So what I would actually say there is, yeah, like he takes, it's like a fucking ultimate move, hey. He takes Luffy's Future Sight, takes Momo's bite attack, takes the laser thing, yeah.
So the thing is there though, I don't know if the Future Sight is necessarily him stealing that because he's fully capable of that already. But I can fully understand what you mean, that he uses Future Sight like Luffy here to dodge the attacks, like Luffy was doing to Kaido, then steals a combination of attacks from other people that he's seen in this fight.
Yeah, because, I mean, like, why on earth would he not use it until this point?
Because it's very interesting to note that Kaido's roaring Thunderbugwers are advanced Conqueror's Haki of Rio in hybrid form. And it's not just that, right? Because when he turns into the homicidal drunk and we get this final attack of the chapter, we don't actually hear the name of the final attack, but I'm pretty positive what it's meant to be is Roaring Thunder Ragnarok. Because remember how he used Ragnarok earlier in the arc, where it was just Conqueror's Haki?
Yeah, because he does the downward slam, which is what his Ragnarok attack was, right?
Yep. And it's a bit hard to tell here because me saying that there's Rio on it, well, we don't see a barrier between Luffy and the mace at all, do we? So arguably you could say maybe it's not Rio, maybe it's just him in hybrid form doing it, but I'm pretty sure he did it in hybrid form the first time he did the Ragnarok, right? He just wasn't as beefy. But it's interesting that there's an impact underneath Luffy before Luffy's hit the ground. That could be the CP0 agent jumping out the way, but that could actually be the barrier of Rio there as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like maybe it's not the I don't touch you Rio. Maybe it's the put it through your body Rio. So he actually hits him with his mace and then shoots the Rio through him, like
trying to do the internal organ damage that Luffy's been doing to him.
Yeah, which is sort of like the way that we were like originally learning about Rio, where it's like you do physically punch them, and then the Rio goes into them, like through their skin.
Regardless, even if Kaido's using the Thieving Drunks phase to steal Luffy's type of dodges here, he's fully capable of Future Sight without it. And it's also very interesting because I have to point out, if you scroll up to the beginning of it, right? Luffy is using Advanced Conqueror's Haki Rio because you see all of Luffy's strikes hitting Kaido without touching Kaido, right? Throughout the entire fight, you see the Conqueror's Haki lightning, but none of Luffy's attacks are actually touching, right? Kaido is literally eating all of these attacks, and we see that they're like pushing him around, right? But realistically, I mean, he's getting hit like this, and he goes into flirting drunk phase, literally gets punched in the face, and he's treating these attacks like they're not actually doing anything to him. They are obviously doing damage.
Basically, what he's saying is that it hurts, but he's like, it's not like wrecking him.
Yeah. Like, when the fight started, I remember Chapter 1000 when he did the Red Rock, everyone was like, oh my god, Kaido got hit, and he's just so shook. No. Kaido's eating these attacks, and it's like, yeah, they hurt, but it's like, fuck, I'm clean. Like when Luffy says he's gonna.
I don't think they're doing nothing. I just think like in this form that Luffy's using, he just doesn't have like the strength. Like what we started seeing near the end of this chapter, where he uses like the supreme Kongan. Like
Yep.
those kind of hits are the hits that he kind of has to do to actually do
Yeah.
damage to Kaido.
But it's interesting that Advanced Rio and Conqueror's Haki being used on Kaido, right? They don't necessarily hurt him. You still need a certain level of attack for it to really do damage.
Yeah. You need like a big forceful smash.
Which sort of leans back into some conversations that we've had in the past of like the whole Shanks and Kaido debate here. You know what I mean? Where depending on how strong Shanks is physically, because we know that he's one of the best swordsmen in the world, if not arguably the best, right? The fact that Advanced Conqueror's Rio strikes hit him as strong as Gear 4, because you got to remember how strong Gear 4 is. You know what I mean? And he's literally able to sit there, treat it like a gag, put his finger up to his lip and be like, "Stop it, ew." He's literally treating it like it does nothing. And I know he's drunk.
Though, I don't think... Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think he's making like an objective decision to like act like an asshole because he's like, you suck. I think he's literally just that drunk that he's like deliriously going, "Stop it, you."
Okay, we've got some comments.
I love that he's goofing around and Luffy's just getting more mad. He's
Yeah.
still drunk.
No, but
Seriously,
it really is leading, because this is playing into Kaido's fighting style, yes, but I'd like to point out, if Kaido took a fight seriously from the beginning, think of the difference here. If Kaido goes into a fight in his hybrid form, like if Kaido's acknowledged someone's strength 100% from the get-go, and he goes into the fight in hybrid form, right? Using Advanced Conqueror's Rio, using Future Sight, and isn't actually letting himself get hit. He's trying to dodge attacks because he's actually trying to win.
I still don't think he has Future Sight unless he's copying it off of someone else.
But how do you copy it of someone else if you don't have it already? That's one of the things I'm meaning.
He has Perception Haki.
Yeah? But Perception Haki isn't Future Sight by any means.
Sure, but I mean, this is an anime, right?
No, but that's it.
He's going into thieving drunk mode, you know, like.
But he's not in thieving drunk mode here. He's in his flirty phase, and he literally says in a cutesy voice, "I hope you don't think you're the only one who can see the future. I'll take a page out of your book." And then he goes into the thieving drunk phase and starts you remember when Katakuri dodged the Black Mamba and just weaved through all of Luffy's punches?
Yeah, that's what he does, right?
Yeah.
But when he does that, at the same time that it says that it says dodge, that's when he's in this form, right? Like, I think him standing there saying, like, "I hope you don't think you're the only one who can see the future," that's him going into thieving drunk phase.
So the way I saw it, right, is yes, it is him going into the thieving drunk phase. But the way I see it is he uses Future Sight, sees the future, and then he says, "I'll take a page out of your book." Goes into the thieving drunk phase. The Future Sight isn't the thing that is thieving. It's the way that Luffy weaves through attacks using Future Sight. And so Kaido goes into the dragon form here so he can snake, and he weaves through the attacks.
I think that's a bit of a stretch, but I don't know. I mean, I guess it's kind of up in the air, but for me, when I was reading this, it was pretty clear that it was like stealing the future. Because why the hell would he not use it until now?
Because he literally doesn't acknowledge the people. He doesn't feel like he needs it. Because you got to think, and this is...
He already had, right?
No,
because originally when he started drinking, Luffy said, "You better not use this as an excuse." And he said, "Don't worry, I've already acknowledged your strength.
Yes.
This isn't going to make me weaker." And then every time that he goes into one of these new phases, it's kind of like Queen bringing out those new abilities. He has some whack-ass...
But this is only like...
smash Luffy with it.
This is only like 3 chapters into that.
Him being drunk.
Yeah, while fighting Luffy.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of the fight time, it's pretty long.
No. If you only go back, it's only a couple of chapters ago that this section of the fight really started. It just feels long because it's been weeks since chapters. With the Christmas break and all that.
What I'm saying is, like, he got drunk, and then Luffy was fighting him with, like, Gear 3 punches in normal form.
Yep.
with Conquerors for quite a bit, like quite a few clashes, and now he's gone
But
into Gear 4, and now they're continuing to fight. Like, it's not like this has been like he's only literally just turned into it.
no,
He's
but
literally just drunk.
and this leads into what I'm saying here. The way that Kaido's reacting to these advanced Conqueror's Rio punches, he's literally treating them like they are pushing him around a bit. No different to how Gear 4 did at the beginning of the arc. Like, when they first had their clash. Remember when Kaido was getting knocked back by Gear 4?
Yeah.
It's no different to that. They may move his body, but he literally isn't... He doesn't... He's not reacting like he's in pain from these. You know what I mean? And to me...
I mean, I think they're calling a bit of pain because he does say, like, that hurts. But it's not like... It's not like he can't fight back or he's taking tons of damage. You know what I mean? Like, he could probably take these punches for quite a bloody while.
Which is what I'm leaning into, though, is they may do damage, but if you think of him like a Dark Souls boss, Luffy's doing like 1% damage with each one of these strikes, right? But the boss still does like a 30% HP cutter every single hit.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And so the way I'm viewing it is, yeah, he's hurting Kaido, and Luffy's so fast, he's landing heaps of hits, but Kaido's still viewing it as like, I don't need to use Future Sight, and I haven't needed to use Future Sight until now, because one, the punches don't hurt me enough for me to feel the need to dodge it, because I'll actually bring up something in an interesting note that I saw online today, and I can send it through on the Discord if you, if that works better for you to actually visualize it. But I've seen people making the comparison that the eyes used for Kaido's Future Sight is actually shared with when Kaido... Ooh, is that it? When Kaido dodged Zoro. Oh, sorry, when Kaido saw that Zoro's attack was going to hurt him, and he just took it. You know what I mean? Now, that might be a reach, but if you look at the way Kaido talks about... Where is it? If you look at the way that Kaido talks about Conqueror's Haki compared to the way he talks about Future Sight, he says, Advanced Conqueror's Haki, there's only a handful of people of the very strongest in the world that can use it. When he talks about Future Sight this chapter, he's just like, I hope you don't think you're the only one who can use it. And like, you got to think about how much of a high tier ability Future Sight is, and the way that Kaido changes the way he talks about both of them, and maybe it's just because of how he is in the chapter, because he is drunk, you know what I mean? He is in his flirty phrase. But it's like, Kaido talking about Advanced Conqueror's Haki is like, oh, only the pinhead of people in the world can have it. Kaido talking about Future Sight now is kind of like, people have it. And like, that could lead in, because at this point in time, we're pretty much confirmed that Big Mom doesn't have Future Sight, considering she's never used it, and she relied on Katakuri to see things from a precognition standpoint. So this is something that Kaido has over Big Mom, right? There's definitely the possibility that Shanks has it, but in terms of the other Yonko, we've got nothing to indicate Big Mom has it. We've got nothing to indicate that Blackbeard has it in any capacity. The only other people that could potentially have it from Kaido's perspective is, say, the Admirals, which have shown things similar to Katakuri with Future Sight. The difference being there, though, I can see the argument that the Admirals don't have Advanced Conqueror's Haki in any capacity. Now, that's neither here nor there, but from Kaido's perspective, it seems like Future Sight might be more common than, say, Advanced Conqueror's Haki.
I mean, of course, Future Sight would be more common than Advanced Conquerors, because just having Conquerors to begin with should be fairly rare, except for among the top tiers. But, like, I don't know. I don't know if he necessarily... Like, I think he's probably, like... The thing is, like, it seems to be, like, him being drunk is, like, literally making him stronger. Like, every time he goes into a new phase, he's got some new... that makes him really strong.
I don't disagree with that.
In particular is basically like, I can use all the abilities of things that are around me. But again, right, it's him being drunk. So things like Momo's bite, right? Mm-hmm. He's probably not going like, it's objectively a great idea for me to bite you.
He's just doing it.
This is my like, he's just drunk and he's just copying shit that he's
saying. No.
So it could potentially backfire. Like if he's fighting a bunch of people that are like really dumb and they keep making shitty fighting moves, and then he goes into that phase, he could just like imitate a bunch of their really dumb fighting moves. That's always a possibility.
I 100% agree, because and again, this might get me some flack here. I am in the camp that even though Luffy is so strong here and is ridiculously powerful, and I put him in that top 10 threshold, right? If you put an Admiral, for the most part, or even another Yonko in this situation, landing these same level, like same amount of hits against Kaido, the damage done by those other people is a lot higher. Because unfortunately, Luffy suffers from being a brawler. Whereas these other people have just got ridiculous status effects, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like it's the trade-off there, if that makes sense. But to me,
but I mean that's just kind of because it's like it's interesting as for the main character to have to land a whole bunch of hits, right? Like,
and it's fun for us.
Category can go on for like 8 hours because they're just slogging at each other. Yeah.
But
it's what I always say with Zoro, people hype up Zoro so much because it's like, oh, he one-shot that guy. It's like, sure, but he's got a sword. Yeah, so either he cuts them or he doesn't cut them. Like,
and if he doesn't cut them, we sit there going, oh, he's kind of trash. Like that is honestly, I love Zoro to the moon and back. I love that guy. He used to be my favorite character in the story, but his fights can be very bland like that. That's why someone like him fighting Daz Bones is entertaining. Because I remember the first time I saw him versus Ryuma, I hated that fight. I thought it was so boring. The fact that, like, and I like the nuances of it now, of like seeing the end, going back to a flashback and seeing it through. But I was just kind of like, all he did was just cut him and he just magically died. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, yeah, Zoro cut him and he won. Whereas like, and I think objectively a lot of people like Zoro versus Daz Bones because it wasn't just a matter of like, I just need to cut him. Because Zoro could cut him, he just couldn't hurt him by cutting him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the difference is in a lot of other Zoro fights, it really is like, if Zoro can do damage, it's like he either beats them or he doesn't. You know what I mean? It's like Kuma. Zoro could cut metal, but he got up against Kuma and he was flatlined. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to me, even if Kaido's stealing how Luffy fights, the fact that he has Future Sight at all means he has Future Sight that he can use whenever. If that makes sense. Like, Kaido's stealing an ability, he can only steal an ability he's capable of doing in some capacity to begin with.
The idea, though, is that he's only able to activate it when he's in this drunk phase, which is why the only time he activated it was when he was in that drunk phase. And we don't know that he can go into specific drunk phases whenever he wants to. It's possible that it's just kind of like he just gets drunk. I'm hooked for the good phase. Kind of like what's to do with the scythe in Hunter x Hunter? The weapon that like he gets a different weapon.
Lucky Slots. How am I forgetting him? He's my favorite guy. Not Pike, not Spike. It's God, the beginning of the Chimera Ant arc. How am I forgetting this?
I forget his name too.
Kite.
Yeah, that's
there. We go. I was sitting here going Spike. I've been watching too much Cowboy Bebop. Yo,
it's
chat's
like
popping
that,
off.
Right? But the thing is, like, in a top tier fight like this, like Luffy is not doing a stupid move, right? So, like, if he goes into this thieving drunk phase, pretty much every ability he's going to take is going to be a good ability to use.
True. However,
if he's in if he's in some like low tier fight with a bunch of peasants, like if he got drunk against the retainers, he would just be like, I'm going to manipulate your scroll. I'm going to send your little like slash back at you. Oh, this is so powerful.
I would say true, except to me, you got to look at the broader picture for Kaido. The fact that he can do this at all means he can do this whenever. The reason he hasn't whipped it out until now is because he hasn't felt the need to whip it out until now for multiple reasons. Number one, I mean, realistically, Kaido, for the most part, has accepted almost any attack that people have dished out. Kaido doesn't...
I think if we see an attack that is outside of him being in that
drunk
phase, I'd give it to you. But right now, I can't accept that he just hasn't done it because he hasn't needed to. Like, that seems to be one of those arguments where it's like in almost all power scaling situations, it'll be like, but why didn't he do it? Well, because he never had to.
Let me ask you this then, right? Before this chapter, is Kaido out? Has Kaido been beaten or actually pushed to his limit?
What do you mean by that?
Well, that's sort of what I'm getting at, right? When I say...
I think he's been taking the fight seriously ever since he said to Luffy distinctly, I'm taking this seriously.
But, right, the time between then and now isn't all that long. And two, right, just because he says he's taking this fight seriously. I mean, when he said that, he started drinking, right? Because he's taking the fight seriously. I agree with you where I think his fighting style is drunken.
I think he acknowledged Luffy a little bit before that.
No.
And then when he started drinking, Luffy was like, "Oh, da 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 da, like you better not blame this on losing." And he said, "I've already acknowledged your strength." So I think he was already trying before that.
I think from memory, and chat correct us here because you guys will have better access to it than us. From memory, from chapter 1000, he was kind of like thinking, he was like, "How high will your ceiling go? Will I acknowledge you?" Then Luffy sends everyone down, then Kaido whoops him, and he's knocked out. Kaido has the whole thing with Yamato. Luffy comes back, gets a few hits in, tells Yamato to piss off. And then Kaido sits down, takes a drink, and goes, "I'm going to acknowledge you. Fight me." And since then and here, there's only been a handful of chapters where we've seen Kaido and Luffy.
I think he was taking him serious since before he knocked him off the edge. And because he was like literally, he was disappointed. Like, Luffy lost that easily when he knocked Luffy off of Onigashima. I think he was taking that fight seriously back then. And then he just like smashed Luffy off the edge, and he was like, "Oh damn, I guess you're not."
I think he saw that point, like up until then. I think he was seeing that as the warm up, realistically. And what I'll say is like,
okay, but I don't know how you can say that because he thought the fight was over, right? He didn't say like, "That's the end of our warm up. I'll see you when you get back." He was like, "That's it."
Yeah, but he burst out into tears, going, "You couldn't be Joy Boy either. Why couldn't you fight?"
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I mean. Is like he wanted Luffy to be strong there. He kind of accepted, okay, this guy has potential.
Yeah.
Let's take this fight seriously. And then when he won, he was like, oh, okay.
But that's my point. My point right here is Kaido, without going all out, was beating Luffy. So why does he need to use something that he would need to go all out like Future Sight? You know what I mean?
In what way was he not going all out before that?
Because he literally wasn't using Advanced Rio. He just used Conqueror's Haki and beat Luffy's ass. Knocked Luffy off Onigashima. Fight was over from his perspective there.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like he was going pretty all out there.
He didn't drink his sake, so he didn't use any of these modes, right? He wasn't using Rio, wasn't using Future Sight. He was barely in hybrid form, and the only reason he was in hybrid form is because he was using it against Luffy, Law, and Zoro. You know what I mean?
I think he was in hybrid form proper because he was like, he's taking Luffy pretty serious.
No, I'm not like I think the difference is here.
Luffy was like, oh, I'm just gonna stay in hybrid form. I may as well.
He acknowledged Luffy as a potential great fight, but what I think happened is Luffy let him down. So Kaido, in Kaido's perspective, Kaido going hybrid, if you can push him to hybrid, right? That's his warm-up. If you can make him use all of his techniques, you're giving him a good fight. Which is why he's so disappointed at the end of this, because it's getting close to the point. Like, Kaido starts using 2 moves where he's using arguably, like, he's using his Roaring Thunder Bagua, where, unlike previously, he looks a little beefier in this form than he does in his other hybrid forms, doesn't? Like in his normal hybrid form, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Right? So that might just be a matter of perspective, but there is definitely... Kaido's not using a Thunder Bagua. He's using a Roaring Thunder Bagua. You know what I mean? He wasn't using that stuff before. Kaido, whether it's because he drinks, and then he doesn't hold back, because we know he goes into that homicidal drunk phase. You know what I mean? What I'm saying is the fact that Kaido, like, didn't use some of his best abilities means that Kaido hasn't gone all out against, like, hadn't gone all out against Luffy prior to this. You know what I mean? Like, there's been no...
It depends on what you mean by going all out, right? Because, like, for example, like, Luffy fighting Kaido using his Gear 3 punches, using his Gear 3 Conqueror's Rio punches, like he was before he went into Gear 4, I would consider him going all out. Even though technically he can go into Gear 4, I would still consider that Luffy going all out.
I wouldn't.
Okay, well then it's just a definition.
Okay, well, because to me,
because obviously like Kaido going this hard is because he knows that the battle is right at the end, and he knows that Luffy is in Gear 4 going and he's not going to last much longer, and so Kaido puts all of his energy.
I will.
Like it's possible that Kaido can't keep this up forever.
I will change my.
Start-
I will change my wording then, and see if this makes it a bit like. See if you understand my point a bit more here, right? Let's just say that this is a high diff fight. Alright? For Luffy and Kaido.
Yeah.
Right?
I'd say there's a definite winner. Like there's definitely one that's stronger, but I would probably call it a high diff fight.
So just say it's a high diff fight for both of them, right? For Luffy right now, it's an extreme high diff fight.
Yeah.
For Kaido, it's a low high diff fight. And it's building up for Kaido. As Luffy gets stronger, as Luffy keeps coming back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, to me, right, I admit, Kaido's acknowledged Luffy, and Kaido's taking the fight seriously, but Kaido's not taking the fight like he needs to win right now. You know what I mean? But he's slowly been building up to it.
Take that fight.
He's slowly been building up to it.
I think Kaido low-key kind of wants someone to genuinely beat him. So I think he will try as hard as he can. But he's not going to be like, I must win, I can't lose.
See, but that leads in.
He'll ever have that mentality.
But that leads into the point that I'm making, right? Where I was saying, right, if you took Kaido, and it's hard because it'll never really happen, and I acknowledge this, right? But if you took Kaido at 100, like he's 100% full health and all that, right? Yeah. And you put him against someone, and you just put him going at an extreme high diff, 100% wants to kill that person and win this fight as fast as possible and as brutally as possible, straight from jump, there is a massive difference there. Because in my mind, and what I'm saying is, he's capable of using Future Sight. So what I'm saying is, these unnecessary hits that are slowly chipping away at his HP that Luffy's doing to him, right? He'd be dodging those sorts of things.
Okay. I agree that if he went hardcore from the jump, it would be a way different fight, but I don't think he has Future Sight.
See, that's the thing. The fact that he is able to use Future Sight even while drunk, right, to me, is indicating that he's able to use it even while he's sober. But the difference being, right?
It's not that he's able to use it even when he's drunk. It's he's able to use it because he's drunk.
See, I don't view it like that. I view it as he's able to use Future Sight, right? But when Kaido's actually taking a fight serious, he will start drinking. I think he's able to use Future Sight without drinking, right? But when he's actually enjoying a fight and taking it serious, right? He'll be drinking while he's doing it. That's his fighting style. He's like that drunken fist sort of master. You know what I mean? I think outside of...
My evidence is that he hasn't used it until now.
Yep.
And your evidence is just that, like, you think he could.
Yeah, so my evidence is because he could, and because he can, he could. You know what I mean? So what I mean by that, right, is Kaido's able to use Advanced Conqueror's Haki outside of being drunk. He's able to use Rio outside of being drunk. He just doesn't tend to use Rio often outside of being drunk, right? We've seen him use it 2 or 3 times before this, but when he's drunk now, he's just using it. Right?
Yeah, sure.
So it's not saying that he's not incapable of using it outside of being drunk, but when he is drunk, he's not holding back as much. He's just like, yeah, I'll go for it. So he's using it more. You know what I mean?
In terms of Rio, but not necessarily...
Up until this point in time in the fight, we've barely even seen him use any form of observation haki, and now he immediately jumps to going, you think you're the only one that can use Future Sight? I can use Future Sight. You know what I mean?
That's what I mean. It's unreal, right? So it must have just be like this temporary thing that he stole from Luffy.
But that's it. I don't think it's a temporary thing. I think it's almost like a season pass for like Fortnite or something. You know what I mean? Where it's like Kaido has observation haki, right? And like, you know, in that tier pass, say you unlock observation haki at like level 10, right? But you unlock the different skins for it as he goes further on in the thing, right? He was always capable of, like, to me, he's always capable of using Future Sight, right? But if you're going to push him to the point where he needs to use Future Sight or he wants to use Future Sight, you're already going to have pushed him to the point where he's having so much fun in the fight that he started drinking and he wants to fight. They're not mutually exclusive, but they both happen roughly around the same time because of how he's built up as a character.
I guess we're just gonna have to wait to see if he uses Future Sight outside of that thieving drunk phase.
Because, and like, look, I fully understand what you mean, and honestly, next chapter after, or in a couple of chapters, I'm sure we'll have our answer before the end of the fight, right?
Yeah.
But to me, it's if he's in drunk thieving stage and he's able to steal observation haki to the point where he can use Future Sight, like, you got to think what Luffy went through the arc before this to use Future Sight.
Well, the idea is just that he's just copying a technique, right? It's like it's that kind of like drunk, dumb confidence of just like, oh, you can do that, so can I. It's
Okay,
that, they're
maybe.
playing on that meme,
Maybe.
right? Of like, oh, because you can do it, it means I can do it.
Maybe. But the fact that he goes, I hope you don't think you're the only one who can see the future, to me that implies he's seen the future before.
Yeah, it will probably just means that he knows that he can take the Future Sight, or maybe he's taken it from someone before.
Maybe, right? So that
He
either
probably knows of other people that can see the future as well.
I would agree with that, but to me, it's not mutually exclusive. You know what I mean? And I can understand where you're coming from, that there's a potential for it, but to me, it's just like it could go either way. Now, holy shit, we have a hell of a lot of comments here, so I'll go through the comments super quick. All right? We've been going on a big monologue there, haven't we? Yo, Ged's in the chat. Next chapter, we might see Blackout phase, Kaido, then flashback starts while Luffy's recovering. Oh, I did. Did I end up?
Actually, oh, you know what would be really actually interesting for Kaido? Saying Blackout phase. What if it was like he gets drunk and he gets all these power ups, but it's kind of like a Gear 4 where at the end he gets like
Passes
basically
out.
like tired. Yeah, he like passes out.
Do
It's
you
like this is essentially Kaido's Gear
Okay.
4, and so we're looking at it and we're like, wow, this guy's so fucking broken. But after this, he's like, I'm gonna go sleep.
Two things. One, did I get to the point before that I was saying that Luffy might have the mink drug that Zoro had to power up? I did? Okay, sweet. Just making sure. Because I think I was building up to that point and I can't remember. I got sidetracked. Two, what if that's how Kaido's been captured so many times and defeated by enemies? Because when he drinks because he's having fun in a fight, he drinks so much that he blacks out. And once, if you can
Blacks
outlast him, you don't beat him,
Yeah.
but you can capture him.
Like some random vice admiral shows up as like late reinforcements and just captures him because he's asleep.
Yeah, like imagine if like you got Kizaru fighting him for a prolonged period of time, right? And Kizaru is just avoiding attacks, just like nope, 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 nope. And Kaido's just getting shitty, drinking and going, oh, fuck you, I'll kick your ass. And then passes out from being drunk. It's just like, slap the cuffs on, take him away, call it a day.
Then as soon as he wakes up and sobers up, he just breaks out of prison and leaves.
Because we know he's destroyed 8 gigantic battleships that were prisons, right? How funny would that be?
That would be good. That'd be a great explanation to like why he's, one-on-one bet on Kaido, but he's been captured so many times.
I actually hope we see
the 1v1 that just gets captured by like the underlings.
I hope we actually see in Kaido's flashback, like I hope we get a Kaido flashback. I hope we get to see some stuff about rocks. But I actually hope we get a montage of all Kaido's losses and the circumstance in which he lost. Because
that'd be good.
having someone with such a high loss rate, but being the strongest creature currently, it's a bit of a double negative, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it'd be good to see why.
It would be interesting if we actually got all of his losses, and all of them were, he just fought, they didn't beat him, but he just, gave up or passed out or just, got bored.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope we see a Tankman real version, since we haven't seen one. We've only seen the full power version. True, that would definitely be interesting. How about a Rocket Man, like a mix of speed and power? Tankman is the slowest form, but heavy impact. A Rocket Man would be off blitz attacks. That would be really interesting.
Rocket Man, he turns into Kim Jong-un.
I mean, we've already got Rocket Man, which was the train from Enies Lobby. And it was like a really sharp thing. Could you imagine
we have Gum Gum Rocket, which is just when he launches himself.
Could you imagine if Luffy uses like a crane style and makes his fingers sort of go to a point?
Right.
And uses Rio and does like a sharp pinpoint damage with like a Gear 4 punch?
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
I feel like if he did that, it would be too similar to the Dragon Fist, that I would just want him to do the Dragon Fist.
Yeah, that's fair. Luffy will get to know the true name of his fruit. Since Enies Lobby, you'll immediately know what fruit you ate once you ate it. I mean, it's interesting that once Luffy ate the fruit, he was told what his fruit was by Shanks.
Yeah, and the other thing is that, like, that has been mentioned, but it has been mentioned so long ago, and it seems like that can be retconned.
No, because it's been consistent. But the thing is, remember, chapter 1, Luffy eats the fruit, but before he actually says anything about his fruit, Shanks goes, "You ate the gum gum fruit."
Yeah.
So Shanks names it on him.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
We never.
No, that whole like hearing the name of the fruit to me is like it just was mentioned so long ago and it hasn't been reinforced enough to me for me that I'm just don't even care about it anymore. You know,
Someone.
it's like saying like they used to talk about devil fruits as if there was like some kind of like spiritual devil that gave you the power, but then they took away your power of being able to swim like out of like revenge or something. There used to be a lot more cryptic around devil fruits.
If anyone knows Japanese better than me, is there any other onomatopoeias that gum relates to? Other than rubber, because honestly, that was something that always pissed me off. That I was like, gum. Gum sounds like it's supposed to be more for like chewing gum than it is for rubber. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's like you were saying. Like, it could just be a simple ass explanation of like, yeah, Shanks told me that it was a rubber fruit, so I just called it gum fruit.
Yeah,
and that's just
because
I mean, he was a little kid when he got it.
I mean, he wouldn't have thought any different or any better from it, would he?
Yeah, exactly. He trusted Shanks a lot.
This means the gumma no fruit. At the same time, there's a hidden fruit from here, hidden in the name maybe. World government did wipe out fruit from history. Actually, a random note: the head of the world government, the one named Imu, that their name is an abbreviation for IMU. Ooh. Never thought of that. I think Imu though is more relating to the flip of it called Umi. Because umi is the word for water. Or ocean.
Mm.
So it'd be interesting if there is a water-based devil fruit, and that's what Im has. Because we always talk, like, you know how there's always that, like, theory conversation that all the islands on the Grand Line that have got weird weather patterns are from awakenings of devil fruits?
Yeah.
I mean, first things first, the scariest thing would be a water-based devil fruit, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Second thing, second, what is most of the One Piece world made of?
Yeah, water.
So imagine the reason the world is so much of a water mass is because of the awakening of the water fruit.
Yeah, and that would be another reason why like the fishmen have been kind of like treated as like bad minorities, because it's like the fishmen can live underwater, which means they can like if they get big population and stuff, they can like travel around and like find all of the underground islands and stuff like that. And they can kind of like uncover the fact that there must have used to be tons of islands.
I mean,
there was
shit.
much more land masses.
A fishman would be able to find Rocks Valley, wouldn't they?
It's true.
God Valley, sorry.
Valley, yeah.
Like if the island did sink.
That's the thing, though. The best thing, like, if you keep the fisherman population super small, then it's like they're not gonna, like what Robin's Island was like, where they're just like trying to figure out the history. Like, if the fisherman population got big enough, they would eventually just become like, a bunch of them would become scientists, and they're like traveling around trying to find hidden underground, under the ocean things.
It's really interesting that they say the world government's allies with the fishmen, but the second they go up onto the surface, they don't stop anyone. Enslaving them. It's almost like, we're friends, come outside. I'm not going to mug you.
Yeah.
We're
friends as long as you don't do anything against us.
Yeah.
Basically all of our world powers.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe they did not, they just claimed that they did, but in reality, the fruit that is able to change its name, just like how Luffy can change from making him known that it is a Gumma Gumma no Mi at the same time. How he will know its true name while unconscious. Yeah, maybe a vision of Joy Boy when Luffy discovers his fruit's name. It's a nice idea, although I'm not into it since it's a common was shown, and I also now get it why Luffy had a time limit and in accessing his Haki in Gear 4. Yeah, well, I mean, and this is another point that I was saying in the live reaction yesterday. Like, the reason why Luffy has such a time limit on Gear 4 is, like, if Haki is, like, something you gotta flex, right? Think about it in the sense that it's, like, Luffy's... To make Armament Haki, you gotta flex that part of your body. To make Rio, you have to, like, almost flex something that's not part of your body. For future sight, like for observation haki, you got to like flex your mind to like think about what's happening around you. For future sight, you've got to almost flex a muscle that doesn't exist in your mind. Going full body haki, like or almost full body haki, like Luffy does in Gear 4. Can you imagine trying to go into a boxing match while flexing 2/3 of your whole body?
Yeah.
Like, how long could you hold that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the reason he runs out of haki, like, and this actually leads into a point that I was saying, like, separate to just like me saying that Kaido hasn't been needing to use Future Sight or Rio as much because he just doesn't view it because he's got so much HP and he's so much of a tank that he just kind of eats it and it doesn't matter. Think of the perfect combatant in the world of One Piece as a haki user, right? Mm-hmm. They have Future Sight, so they know any attack that's going to happen to them from anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Now imagine if someone has actually mastered Rio, advanced Rio, to the maximum extent. Because we saw, even in this chapter, and we've seen in previous chapters, Luffy uses advanced Rio to go full body to defend against energy attacks, right?
Yeah.
A proper master, and like I hold out hope for Shanks possibly even being able to do this, which would be crazy, right? Imagine a proper master of Rio, where they can stand still, and any attack, they just form a bit of Rio in that area to block that one attack instead of needing to go full body. It's the difference between using, like, how impressed were we when we first see, like, Virgo go full body haki? It was like, oh my god. And then we got to Doflamingo, and Doflamingo doesn't use full body haki. He just hakis up the one spot that's going to be hit. And it's so much more effective and wastes so much less haki.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's that same concept just applied off the body. How much more impressive would that be? You know what I mean? You're not expending nearly as much haki. You're so much more efficient, but you're still so much more defensive. That, like, you could literally stand there and nothing hit you. Because you're just forming a little barrier immediately where any strike is going to be, right? I don't think there will ever be a time in One Piece when a character actually does that. Because one thing that Oda has been pretty reasonable with is not make... Like, he makes people overpowered. I mean, look at Kaido, right? But he never gives a character everything, if that makes sense. Like, if they can do something like this, he puts a pretty big drawback on it. Or he gives them such a big repertoire of stuff that they don't necessarily know what to pick. So they don't always pick the best thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how many times have we said, like, oh, you know, why didn't this character use this ability? Oh, they're just dumb. They didn't think of it. Whereas, like, how many times when you're under stress or under pressure do you think of every little thing that you could have done to fix it? In hindsight, you go, oh, shit, I should have just done that, shouldn't I? But in the moment, you're just like, oh, fuck. You know what I mean?
That's the thing. It's like you see like little like street fight videos of stuff of people like fighting, and it's like they're just standing there getting punked in the face. Like, dude, put your hands up. But like realistically, if that was happening to you, you wouldn't.
You just like,
You're
what the?
not thinking that objectively when
Yeah.
it's happening to you. Yeah.
But like imagine how scary that would be to see someone like Shanks be able to go full body, like not full body Rio, but act as if he had full body Rio. So the only way to hurt him, really, is if you are someone like a Pooh or Kid, where you can bypass the Rio, because it's an effect that just bypasses that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That would be pretty freaking crazy, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I still sort of stand back, and I'm... Call me crazy for this, right? And every time I've reread Marineford, as of late, I always look at when Sengoku fights the Blackbeard pirates, right? And you know the massive shockwave he does? You know that massive, like...
Yeah.
The only reason we say that's part of his devil fruit is because of how we've seen it in games and things like that. And even how it sort of had that gold colouring in the anime, right?
Right.
Whereas in all seriousness, that could have just been a massive area of Rio. Just doing internal organ damage to all the Blackbeard pirates. But it's like not super effective because it's so widespread. Because the only thing that they actually, like, they don't say, oh my god, his Buddha's able to create shockwaves. They never voice anything like that. They literally say, what the hell was that? Was that a shockwave?
Yeah.
And The manga is different to the anime because he only does it a single time in the manga to the Blackbeard pirates, whereas in the anime you have that whole moment where the Gorogoro no Mi is clashing against the shockwaves. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay.
And like, I mean, we ain't gonna lie. Like back then, earlier in the anime, right? There has been some stuff that's like not been necessarily animated well, or specifically like just ignored. Like you got to remember, Kuma's original color scheme was supposed to be freaking bright orange, and the anime were just like, yeah, we don't like that. We're gonna change it to the darker colors. And since then, Kuma's been dark. You know what I mean? So there's like there's no guarantee on like, and it's interesting because it's like, it's not necessarily what's said, but it's the fact that Odin hasn't actually technically clarified that it's from the devil fruit, necessarily. That you could be like, he could come out tomorrow and be like, oh yeah, that was actually Advanced Rio the entire time. I showed it in the war. You just didn't realize. You know what I mean? And how pissed off would you be about that? Because you'd be like, how were we meant to guess that? But yeah, it's crazy because it's weird that like, in mythology does a Buddha create shockwaves? Every other mythical zone has something that obviously relates to their fruit, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. I'll tell you what though. We should move on a little bit. I've finished off these comments quickly. The way he's using Gear 4 is fusing his Haki with his fruit having electricity of rubber while hardening, so maybe the Haki of the Devil Fruit negates each other, or just like how Haki affects the abilities. Like how they can neglect a Logia where Luffy can use them and maybe master it would mean he will be unstoppable when when he perfected the Gear 4 mix. True. I mean, shit, could you imagine like the elf, like the Thor axe or the Red Hawk in Gear 4 against Kaido, how much damage that would do with Rio?
Yeah, that'd be a lot.
Like, yo, shit, imagine that. A Gear 4 King Kong Hawk. Or actually, technically, we've seen the rock gun, right? So imagine that, where it's like, you have him hit him with the Advanced Conqueror's Rio. So it does whatever that surface level damage is from those hits. But you know how the fire like goes through the person? It goes through him with the internal destruction Haki.
Okay.
How much damage would that do? It'd be like getting stabbed with a lightsaber, but leaving no mark on the skin. It'd be broken.
True.
By the way, right? Can we just admit, Law and Kid, they didn't beat Big Mom, but they won against Big Mom, right? They would have had jack shit chance against Kaido. Like genuinely, they would not have freaking touched Kaido like that.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Like, fuck me dead. And like, you know how much I love Big Mom, right? But like, even with the future sight and that, it's like, yo, Kaido just has some BS over Big Mom. When he really gets, like, when the going gets tough, he gets really going. You know what I mean? I would love, you know how Big Mom said, we've defeated hundreds of rookies like you in the past? I would love a run through of just some of the, like, what the bounties are of rookies, their name and abilities, right? Just like a couple of page spread of like random rookies from the past that Kaido and Big Mom have just low diffed. And like how old they were when they beat them. You know what I mean? It's like when they were young, slowly going up in age and just having a body count of like the top tier rookies that they've just wiped out.
Yeah.
That would be cool to me. Seeing his Gear 4 limitation, so maybe Luffy will develop a proper balance where he evens out his Haki instead of using it all in one go. When Cat uses Haki, he didn't make that Mochi consistency, meaning it is not mixed. I mean, you get that tribal pattern. I've talked about this in the past. There's a type of Haki that isn't directly talked about where you're using Haki on your Devil Fruit or in conjunction with your Devil Fruit. The only 3 times I've ever seen it used is Gear 4 with Luffy while he retains that rubber. When Katakuri, and there's a distinction because Katakuri both uses regular armament and this type of armament when he wants his mochi to stay sticky instead of just be hardened. And Big Mom has used both regular armament and this haki when stealing souls from her own children in Whole Cake Island. So there is a type of haki, or a different design on haki, when you're using haki with your devil fruit. Which, partly the reason why I think we haven't had that explained is because that's being saved for people like the Admirals or Logias. Because when a Logia uses armament haki and wants to retain their ability, we're going to see that type of haki be a lot more prevalent. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, if Akainu needs to armament haki up his magma so it doesn't get flung everywhere, it's going to have that tribal consistency because he's going to want to try and keep it contained and burn. You know what I mean? Whereas, like, someone like if you just punch, like, if someone was super strong and, like, had a Rio and just punched the magma, it would just spray everywhere, right? But, like, if he's trying, like, we don't know whether or not he can, like, harden the magma fist with haki so it doesn't get splattered everywhere, but he can also retain that, like, potency for a punch. That could still be completely negated by Rio, but, like, it wouldn't create that splashing effect, which is how certain devil fruit abilities could be a lot more deadly in that capacity. You know what I mean? That's true. True, his haki is both fighting his fruit and the opponent's fruit and haki. Could you imagine Goma Goma no Days versus Drunken Flirty Kaido? Yo, I fucking... Can we just talk a moment how, like, did you laugh your ass off when you saw Flirty Drunk Face Kaido?
Yeah.
Like, I actually lost the words. I was just like, yo, this man is about to this man is about to beat Luffy down and take his virginity. This man's about to have the Boa Hancock treatment and be like, Luffy's a bye. And I love how he, like, dude, he's an ogre. He's literally an ogre, and I love how he does the little, like, finger on the bottom lip, like, so ridiculous. The ultimate battle of derps. Blackbeard and his crew did cough out blood after getting hit by Sengoku's attack, much like what Rio does, because it's internal. Sengoku goes Fishman Karate, Robin style. I mean, shit, like, we still don't know how Sengoku fights. You know what I mean? We saw the shockwave once in the anime, had no context around it, and we've had some anime-only filler. Right? And...
yeah.
Like, the anime-only filler in Marineford, you can't tell me that that's how it's, like, viewed, like, canonically. Because, like, dude, in Marineford, you had Akainu shooting Whitebeard with, like, 30 magma fists, and Whitebeard's literally walking around slapping them out of the air. That is a whole different tone to the manga.
Yeah.
So it's like, anything from that era of the anime, I don't look at as pure fact. You know what I mean? I look at the manga, and I see that it's open for interpretation, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we should talk about this bit. Like, Kaido just deletes a hole through all of Onigashima like it's nothing, with his Borrow Breath. And Luffy just gets pumped through the whole thing. Like...
yeah.
This man literally was...
insane, because the thing is that he's not even, as far as we can... He's using, like, kind of like normal haki to defend himself, but there's no, like, separation. Like, this is hurting him. This is getting him.
Well, actually, I think the difference is, and I could be wrong, when the attack first starts to hit him, you don't see it hit him, but you see it get close, right? Like, you see the flash of light, and then if you go down... Before he turns into Bound Man, just above that, you see the panel where you see energy flowing around him.
What do you mean by energy flowing? Okay, like his arm?
Yeah. Like, around his arm and his upper half of the body. It might just be that, like...
I honestly think that's maybe just, like, him starting to turn into Gear 4. Like, if you
could
look
be.
at his legs and stuff, like, there's... that light is on him.
True.
You know what I mean? But
yeah, no,
you'll notice,
actually...
like, other than his face, I guess, like, his leg and his arm are all blackened.
Actually, do you know what?
He might be basically like full body haki to defend himself.
I'll actually take that back. I think you're right there. It is just full body haki because you see, well, not even full body haki. I think it's just the same Gear 4 haki, but he's been winded out of Gear 4.
Yeah.
By the attack, but he's still got the haki on his body, so it's not Rio even. So like he can defend an island busting attack just with his regular haki without Rio.
Yeah.
That's pretty broken.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Then he darts back up, and I'd been saying this for the longest time that we were gonna get a King Kong gun, right?
Yeah.
Instead, we get the Conqueror's Haki Kong gun. It's the Supreme Kong gun. What a great parallel to think that this attack, the downgraded version of this attack, one-shot Doflamingo. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
You gotta think. Like, people like, Whitebeard's shit because Doflamingo wasn't scared of him, but Doflamingo was scared of Kaido. Luffy's doing attacks at one-shot Doflamingo against Kaido, and Kaido's just eating it. And it hurts him, but it's just a bitch. No wonder Dofi was scared of this thing. This thing... Kaido would have murdered Dofi 7 ways to Sunday. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So good to see. And I love that we get a parallel to the beginning of this arc with the Roaring Thunder Bagua and how it speed blitzes Luffy in Gear 4 like it did at the beginning of the arc, and it one-shots Luffy like it did at the beginning of the arc, except this time Luffy's still, because he's got the stronger, he's still conscious, and he has to hold his mouth to stop Gear 4 escaping. Whereas at the beginning of the arc, Gear 4 got let out and he was just out. Remember?
Yeah.
So this is a great parallel to see how far Luffy's come from this stage, right? Then we have this sickening thing where CP0 joint locks Luffy and stops Luffy from punching. And you can see how mad Kaido is, but then how gutted Kaido becomes when he sees he hit Luffy.
Yeah, and here's the thing is that this is like literally Odin all over again, right? He's finally got a good fight that he might, I mean, he won't lose this, but he might lose in, possible at least. It's not going to happen, but it's possible. And then someone distracts his opponent. He basically accidentally, dishonorably wins it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this to Kaido is like worst case scenario. Like literally at that moment when he's doing that swing, the worst thing that you could do to him in life is exactly what that agent just did to him.
100%.
Ruin his high right as he's about to finish this fight.
Also, I'd like to point out there was a new hybrid form this chapter, if you'd noticed.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Kaido in his dragon form with his arms when Kaido bites Luffy.
Right.
Because if you actually look, right? See how Kaido's neck is really short there? And he's got the arms immediately there, and you see the chest leaning over? Right?
Yeah.
That's a new form. That's almost like a Medusa-y sort of form. Because even if you scroll down, the next chapter down, look at the massive size difference between where his arms are and how he doesn't actually have the shoulders on that section of his, like he doesn't have the tattoos coming across on the shoulders in that aspect.
Wait, this is the last hit?
No. When Kaido bites Luffy, about halfway through.
Okay.
With the Future Sight section.
Yeah. Let me get to it. Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
So you've got he's
like a hybrid body but dragon head.
Yes. So he's got the dragon tail, hybrid torso, dragon head right at normal head size, and then you see him change into the proper full dragon mode after, right?
Yeah. Sure.
I was interested in that because that means there's a potential to see him fighting almost like the Boa sisters. But with his Kanabo as well. Because we haven't seen Kaido really use his like long tail and that and springiness to launch like a serpent.
By the way, where the hell does his Kanabo go when he turns into a dragon?
Oh, dude, he just shelves it. Just straight up the butt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why it's not. That's why he doesn't use a bladed weapon.
Yeah,
He
100%.
wouldn't be able to fight properly.
He's a snake, man. It just goes in the
But
mouth.
other thing is, he didn't even need those spikes. He put them on there for the fun of it.
Yeah. Ribbed for his pleasure. But yeah, going back to the end of the chapter. Sorry, I just remembered about the whole hybrid thing then, because it was something really interesting to note. Because a lot of other zones don't actually have more than the 3 hybrid forms, right? But so I know I messaged you about this, asking this immediately, right? But at this point in time, do you think there's going to be an Act 4?
Now, yes.
Yeah?
Yes. Here's the thing. Absolutely, I think there will be an Act 4. I think I really hope they'll fight again. They have to fight again. I'll be so mad if they don't. And then I am super sure there's going to be a Gear 5.
Yeah. Okay. I will ask you this then. What do you think will happen in the interim between here and the end of this act? Because, and I'll say what I mean by this, right? The typical thing is Act 3 ends in tragedy. The tragedy is probably going to be that Luffy's been beaten, Kaido comes down, Onigashima lands. Right? Like, does that feel, as enough of a low point for the people?
I mean, yeah, wait. There was no break, yeah?
No.
Yeah, I think that's enough. Honestly, I don't think that it needs to be like a character death or something like that. Like, I honestly think this is enough for it to be considered a tragedy. Like, I would agree if you thought that like Onigashima comes down or something, but to be honest with you, like, I think the tragedy in this case should just be like they're right about to finish their fight and then something interrupts it. And so, God damn it.
I think. So this is chapter 1042. Chapter 1045 will be the end of this volume. So there's 3 more chapters until the end of this volume, right?
3, okay.
I think there's enough setup that next chapter we get stuff with Kaido and CP0, right? Dealing with that. We also might get Frankie and Jinbei, Braizo and Zoro, and all the other Straw Hats brought together down on the live floor.
I think we get Yamato.
And okay.
We need to because like so far it's been like there's been a sword go through the floor and there's been a laser beam go through, and we haven't had much from it.
But before I continue this theory, right? Someone put an excellent theory in the discussion in the reaction last night. What are the people at the Fire Festival doing right now?
They're putting all their wishes up into the sky.
In the lanterns.
Yes.
There is now 2 massive holes through all of Onigashima, right next to the giant bombs at the bottom of Onigashima.
Do you think the lanterns are going to go up and then blow the bombs up?
That's what the theory was.
I honestly, at the start of this chapter, because I knew Luffy's like going into Gear 4, I honestly thought the fight was going to be basically over very soon. And my thought was they're all going to put their wishes up into the sky, and then they're going to look up into the sky to see all their wishes floating there, and they're going to see Luffy having defeated Kaido, and all of their wishes come true, essentially. Well, that would have been like a really nice ending.
That would be a nice ending.
It didn't happen.
What about a tragedy? They look up into the sky, seeing that all the scabbards have been beaten and killed. Kaido's standing victorious, and Onigashima's right above him.
Yeah.
That's a good tragedy.
Yeah, that is true.
Now, there's a few things that I think we've got to deal with before this is completely over, though. Right? So, it's very fitting that Hiyori, last chapter, was set up having stabbed Orochi with a Sea Prism Stone, and now he's caved in, right?
Yeah.
So, every act is opened and ended with Hiyori playing the shamisen. We haven't
Right.
seen Denjiro in a red hot minute, have we?
We haven't.
I think there's a possibility that we see Denjiro meeting up with Hiyori. They get the finishing blows potentially on Orochi now that he's pinned down, right? Considering they had to suffer under him more than anyone else, right?
Hmm?
After Orochi's killed, she will sit down and play the shamisen, and that'll end Act 3. Right?
Right.
Between now and then, we'll have Kaido dealing with the CP member. We will have all the allies regrouping in the same area, arguably in the center of Onigashima, like, on their own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With the whole flames engulfing them. I think we'll also get something to do with Zunisha. I think what'll happen is when this act ends, separate to what we think we might see around the rest of the world, right? This act will end with we've beaten all of them, but it doesn't matter because Kaido's won, and we're all gonna die on Onigashima because of the fire and the bombs, right? Kaido's going to drop Onigashima, and Kaido probably doesn't realize he's not over the Flower Capital now, but do you know what they are probably over? That giant hole made by Big Mom from Law's Awakening.
I'd assume they would have flown past it, right? Like pretty much immediately, because it was like directly below them.
But what if now that Kaido has beaten Luffy, Kaido starts to fly back, realizes that Momo's trying to drag against it, and just turns the clouds off? And they just plug up the hole. They just plug up the hole. Nice and simple like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is also the third CP0 member that's on the loose, that hasn't moved. He most likely will go after Robin. Considering this guy's orders were changed to go after Luffy, he might take up the responsibility of going after Robin.
Yeah.
So imagine if this act ends, Luffy's knocked out, Kaido's victorious, Onigashima lands right next to the Flower Capital, so all the Flower Capital sees that Kaido has beaten the rebellion, and there's no chance of anything, right? The tragedy is that Luffy's out, everyone else is pretty much fucked, right? And all just... I think what we need all plot lines wrapped up, nice and simple, before this act ends. Because I think Act 4 will open with the Kaido flashback. And immediately after the flashback, we'll get the final fight. Because I think the important thing to note is typically when we get the villain flashback, especially as of late, it's right before the villain gets beaten.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like...
Yeah.
When we see Kaido's flashback, I give it like 2-3 chapters after that. Or, depending on if it's a big fight, this might be the exception to the rule. You know what I mean? But it's like, we need that flashback before Kaido goes down. And considering Act 3 opened with the Odin flashback, it'd be really interesting if Act 4 opens with the Kaido flashback. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The question is... what plot lines, because like I'm saying, I think everything needs to be resolved before this act ends, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what Oda wants to happen, you know what I mean? So what plot lines are going to be resolved now, and what plot lines are going to be resolved in the main fight? Because to me, Act 4 is just going to be only Luffy versus Kaido. Realistically. It's going to be flashback and Luffy versus Kaido. I don't think we need to cut away to everyone else. I think that's the whole point of Act 3, that we've seen everyone else get to do their thing while getting a little bit of Luffy versus Kaido. And I don't know if Act 4 is even going to be all that long, because do you know what the alternate possibility is? Act 4 is supposed to be the major conflict of the arc, right?
Yeah.
The alternate possibility is that the Big Mom pirates and Marines all show up, and fuck, we've just been wrong this entire time, and the major conflict that we're supposed to be expecting is not even what we've seen so far. And I don't really believe that. I can't in good conscience say that that's going to be what's happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, to have a bunch...
I don't think it can happen just because there's so much to cover in the story.
Yep.
So for that to happen, I think everything would have to come to us.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, it would have to be like Blackbeard comes and
Yeah.
or like the admirals can't, and like pretty much like everything gets like or most things gets concluded here.
Yeah.
And like it just so happens that the last poneglyph is here, and then either
Mm-hmm.
the Elbaf comes or we don't even go to Elbaf. Like,
And see, I don't know what Oda's plans are for the story. I can't comment because as of late, Oda's been doing some. Oda's been changing it up a bit. But to me, this hasn't been set up to be, for the most part, what the final arc of the story would be. If most of the conflict of the story gets resolved here with so many people coming, I feel like I know Oda hyped up Wano a lot and that it was going to make Marineford look like filler, but honestly, so far it hasn't it? To an extent.
yeah,
We've
and
seen
this arc has been going on for freaking ages.
We've
I
seen-
feel like I've been telling my partner all the time about Luffy fighting Kaido, and it's been like a year.
Yeah. I mean, this is now a year longer of an arc than Dressrosa. Let that sink in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've been in Act 3 for like 2.5 years. 3 years. How crazy is that?
Pretty much the whole of Wano right now to me feels like the Onigashima raid.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean,
the actual Wano arc was to me like a tiny little bit at the start.
do you even remember the sumo wrestler that was the villain at the beginning of the arc? That was flirting with Okiku?
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
How long ago was that?
Yeah, that was ages ago.
I do have to ask, actually, because I didn't ask you. Is Drake dead? Is Drake and Drake and Hawkins the first dead supernova?
I don't think they're dead.
No?
Nah.
How do you think Sengoku would feel knowing that CP0 took out Drake?
Sengoku? Why Sengoku and not Akainu?
Because Sengoku is Drake's foster dad.
Yeah, okay.
And,
yeah, true.
And Sengoku would have more ties being a former fleet admiral and still be in the know. You know what I mean?
That's true.
He'd be caught up on the office gossip.
Yeah.
And considering it was reported to Kobe that CP0 is present on Wano by Drake, it'd be very interesting that, oh, Drake's dead. Did we get his body? Yeah, he just had a fingered hole in his torso and throat. It's like, huh.
In all honesty, I'm thinking like at the end of this arc, like Drake might, everyone join Luffy kind of deal. So it's possible that like he's not even reacting to the news that CP0 attacked him. He's just reacting to the news that now he's a pirate, like genuine pirate.
Honestly?
He's like, God damn it, everyone keeps turning into a pirate.
I don't know, because who do you think was the person with the 1% survival chance from Hawkins?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Because the anime implied it was Drake specifically.
Yeah.
And, I mean, shit. At this point in time, if this arc ends and the people that that have been dead now are actually dead, think about what that actually does to the story. We've had Shutamaru die, Izo die, Drake die, Hawkins die. You know what I mean? There's some... I mean, unlike Marineford, some big players died. And I don't mean that Ace and Whitebeard weren't big players, but, like, you kind of... Like, in Marineford, you kind of could tell who had to die if they were going to die. You know what I mean?
You think Izu's, like, straight up dead?
Potentially.
I still think pretty much everyone, or most people, are like, but they could still be alive at the end.
I don't disagree, except I look at it and go, well, I mean, Oda's already, like, people that have been faked out dead have gotten back up, haven't they?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing, is it's like everyone right now is about as dead as Zoro is. I'm sure no one thinks Zoro is going to die.
But if this arc ends, and the people that are down, like, think about what that does to the story.
Yeah, Big changes. Then again, there's big changes right now, no matter what. Hey?
Oh, honestly. Um, it's crazy. Honestly, it's crazy. And do you know what's even crazier? Having seen what Kaido can do and what he's capable of, I still stand by my idea that personally, and I'll clarify by how I think I've changed my view set on it. Kaido is a better fighter than Whitebeard, but Whitebeard, based on his fruit, beats Kaido. Right?
Right.
Just because of the whole huge amounts of damage, bypasses defense, huge area of effect with potency, right?
We're talking old Whitebeard here, yeah?
Yeah. Old and young. You know what I mean? Like, the fruit itself carries Whitebeard.
I think young Whitebeard was a better fighter than Kaido. Because I think young Whitebeard was able to fight against Roger. And I think Roger was, like, specifically an incredibly good fighter.
Do you think Kaido here would have been able to fight against Roger?
Roger wasn't raw power, yeah? Like, Roger was fighting skill and haki, assumedly.
Yeah.
What did you ask?
Do you see Kaido here, with what he's showcasing, being able to fight against Roger?
Fight against, not win against. I mean, he could obviously fight against because, like, Odin could technically fight against Roger. Just definitely wouldn't win. Right?
I mean...
I think, he'd do a little bit better than Odin did.
Is that all?
Not much.
Because, to me, Kaido...
Well, actually, no, sorry. No, because that Odin that we saw in that flashback was before a bunch of training.
Yeah, and the Odin at the end of that flashback didn't even push Kaido to hybrid.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know.
It's hard, right?
Under that fight, I think Odin was pretty close to Kaido in that fight.
I don't disagree, but I think that fight was still at the beginning.
To Luffy here, right? Where it's like Luffy got stopped during his last attack, and it's like, oh, maybe he would have beat him with that last attack. He wouldn't have, but maybe he would. Like, it was that kind of thing, right? It was like, well, maybe Odin could have beaten Kaido if he didn't get distracted, but no, he wouldn't.
Well, I mean, realistically,
it's that kind of fight.
Odin scarred Kaido, yeah. So Odin's capable of hurting Kaido, and that's a big difference because, hey, guess what? Zoro hasn't actually scarred Kaido. Zoro cut Kaido, yeah. Kaido said, this will stay with me, but that could mean metaphorically, because since then, Kaido's healed that wound. There's no scar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, Odin's already, like, higher tier than what Zoro's been shown to do, right? Which is impressive.
I mean, I think Odin is, like, ultra high tier. I think Odin is well over current Zoro.
But, right, Kaido took that in base, didn't go into hybrid, and and I understand completely because the Odin fight got cut really short because of the interference. You know what I mean? And it also was a younger Kaido anyway. But it's like, I don't know, old Kaido here, I do think Roger probably beats him. But it's like, I still see it being a high tier fight. You know what I mean? I don't see.
I think it's a high tier fight in the same sense as like Luffy versus Kaido right now. Where it's like at the end of the fight, it'll be clear that Roger is stronger than.
Okay. But that being said, right, the reason I look at Whitebeard like that, right, is even old Whitebeard, where people dick on him like crazy, right? Old Whitebeard was still able to have the observation haki to sense when someone was going to kill him in his sleep, right? So he had really good danger sense, like Spidey sense.
Yep.
That old man could stand still in one spot and just, like, Whitebeard, as a Yonko, can fight more like Zoro as a Yonko. You know what I mean? Like, Zoro is a very, like, stand still, do big flashy attack. You know what I mean? He's more of a reactionary fighter than he needs to be a offensively precautionary fighter, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get you.
So it's like, Whitebeard could literally be clashing equally with Kaido by just standing still and quaking in that direction. And having observation haki good enough to turn and quake, and turn and quake, and turn and quake. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
This is why it's like, because I'm seeing how skilled Kaido is here, and I'm looking and I'm like, what the hell are we going to be expecting from Blackbeard? Because right now, Kaido has, I think, been shown to be the best combatant in the story on screen with feats. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's been shown equaling Big Mom in projectile sword slashes when they did their joint ocean sovereignty. Right? Even though we haven't seen him using, like, an Elbaf spear, we've seen he's capable of it. Right? He's got all types of advanced Haki. He's an ancient zone, so he's got the healing factor. Oh, he's a mythical zone, so he's got the healing factor. He's got the beef up from muscle and stuff like that. Plus, we've seen he's got pretty good speed feats. Like, I understand why he's at number 1, but, like, you know how we always talk about how people are going to surpass him?
Yeah.
I'm really finding it hard to see how we're going to see people surpass him in skill at this point in time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's tough because, like, the thing is that, like, Kaido right now is the strongest person that we've seen fight, right?
Yeah.
So we don't really know of abilities that are stronger than his. But so it's hard to tell how someone can be stronger than them. But at the same time, like, you could pretty easily just say, like, well, someone has an ability that's stronger than him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, sure, like, we haven't really seen Haki that's, like, outright stronger than Kaido's, but it's still possible that someone has Haki that's just outright stronger.
To me, he still gets, like, hurt if, like, he goes to swing his club at Akainu and Akainu has future sight, say, right? And just does, like, the liquidification around the attack and then just punches him in the arm or something with the magma. That magma's hurting him. That's still tearing through him, in my mind.
Yeah.
Right? So I can see how people like that do it. But I look at someone like Blackbeard, and I'm like, I understand Blackbeard has the Devil Fruit cancelling with the darkness. And he can do big area of effects with the darkness, right? And he's heaps high potency with the quakes. But it's like, shit, man. If you've got someone that's really good at speed, Blackbeard should be a done deal.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Even if he's got a fair bit of HP.
Blackbeard is super fast.
Because it's like... And I think a lot of us talk about how Blackbeard will eventually surpass the other Yonko, right?
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, like, when you talk about how, like, Whitebeard could, like, just stand there and be an absolute tank, how I imagine old Whitebeard is that, like, he just stands there and fires quakes, and if the quakes aren't good enough, he's just gonna get, he can get beaten, potentially. But whereas when I think about, like, prime Whitebeard, in my mind,
he's doing
like,
flips and kicks and slashes and all sorts of crazy
running
shit.
around fighting like Roger, except every strike there's a quake coming off of it.
Like we've discussed in the past, like, I believed, right, that Whitebeard doesn't use quakes against Roger because he doesn't need to, because it doesn't change the effect. But it's like his Haki's still seemingly on par with Roger's. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, essentially, you're talking about, like, Roger with added effects that just don't matter against some people. You know what I mean? Like, that's some ridiculous shit there. Because Kaido's kind of doing that, but not as elegantly, really. Kaido's still coming in this, giving me sort of some, like, some barbarian vibes. You know what I mean? He's a lot less graceful about it. But he's still an absolute
Well, that's
beast.
the thing. It's like I feel like if Roger or Whitebeard swung an attack, Kaido could, like, meet the attack, but he would kind of, like, it would hit him a bit more tough than it hit them.
So, forgive me for my example here. So it's like, remember in Marineford when Whitebeard quakes, and you see the Admiral standing, watching the fodder just flying off in the air, like, oh, and you got the Vice Admirals there, just, like, holding their guard, just, like, shaking a little bit, just like, what? Yeah. Kaido's there with his Kanabo shaking a little bit, like, this is the Pirate King? I say that in all jest. But yeah, it's interesting because, and I know I hype up Whitebeard's Quake Fruit a lot, and I should give that same hype to Blackbeard, considering Blackbeard has observation Haki and is pretty good at observation Haki seemingly. But it's like, it's hard to, because we haven't seen speed from the big boy. It's hard to see him in the same way that we even see an old Whitebeard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which leads me to go, if Kaido's just the all round combatant, Shanks is the Haki master, Big Mom's more Devil Fruit master, right?
Mhm.
Do you know what I'd really love to see from Kaido? From Blackbeard. I would love to see him as the most creative fighter. Like, I would.
Yeah, it's just his fruits don't seem to like seem really straightforward.
I
You know what
would.
mean?
I would.
Ultra powerful, but really straightforward.
I would absolutely love if he's able to quake into his darkness dimension and store a quake.
Yeah.
Because think about that, right? If he's able to do that, imagine if this man does his vortex attack where he sucks you to you and turns your fruit off, and then unleashes a quake through it.
Yeah.
How busted that would be.
Yeah.
Because we've seen that vortex technique completely outclass Gear 2 speed and Shave.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, and you know how I was saying earlier in the fight where it's like, if Shave's able to move relative to some of these, like, Yonko still, even if they've got better reactions to it, yeah, imagine that. Imagine if he's just able to put his hand out in the air, drag you to him, and quake you out.
Yeah, it'd be pretty crazy.
It would be pretty ridiculous. Okay. He said to King that he's not sure if he is or not. I don't think Kaido's joining. Nope. But he has the laugh that reflects the King. Yeah, he did not state and assume just how Luffy doesn't realize. Nonetheless, their blood is really something. That's true, but the relationship is still violently volatile. Oh, okay, I've missed a fair bit there. Straight up gave a man a quake brain. Big Mum treat Kaido with kindness while in Rock's crew, since after they disbanded, Kaido still believed he is Joy Boy, the Bond. Yo, I actually really am keen to see young Big Mum and Kaido in a Rock's flashback. Are you?
It'd be good, yeah.
Especially with like Shiki
It does
and
seem
shit.
like it seems like Big Mom was a lot less jaded.
Yeah.
A lot more of like a normal, passionate pirate.
Yeah.
Nowadays, she's just kind of like sick of it.
Oh, I really.
Like, Jesus Christ, gonna own the world yet?
I really think, like, I think it's. I'm gonna call it the Doflamingo effect, right? Where it's like we call this generation the worst generation. This generation's the worst generation though because they want to be at the top now, right? Whereas in the past there wasn't a top, so people naturally developed until they got to the top. And then there were people that either made it or broke it. Like you got Roger and Whitebeard's generation with Rocks, right? Then you've got Kaido and Big Mom's generation. Then you've got Shanks, Mihawk, and Doflamingo's generation, and now you've got this generation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or even arguably like Cavendish's generation before this generation. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it's interesting how less and less people started making it to the top because the people that were at the top ended up holding that power so much better. Like, there's only one, like, out of the original Yonko, all three Yonko came from the same crew in the same generation. Only one Yonko really was like a next up and comer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then from that generation, the only two real standouts are Shanks and Mihawk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now it's like there's a generation where no one ended up getting to that level. Like Cavendish is strong, but he's like barely cracking the 300 mil range. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But now you got Luffy's generation. It's like we're starting to get the bills, the 400 and 500 mils. You know what I mean? Like you got to think like people like Snack. Snack's like the youngest member of the Commanders, Sweet Commanders, right?
Yeah.
He's like 28 or 26, and he's got 600 mil, and that's considered like, oh, that's really impressive, because then you got like Katakuri, who's essentially 50 at 1 bill, not even double him. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like for a lot of these other characters, it's a lot more of a slow grind up, while this generation is just like shotgun blasting through gaps. You know what I mean? Which is interesting.
Yeah.
I've got to ask, what are your thoughts? What do you think is going to happen in the next couple of chapters?
think, I think like obviously like the Luffy Kaido fight's kind of over right now. We're gonna see what happens with Kaido next chapter. I kind of agree, 3 chapters and then end of the thingy. I'm thinking like next chapter, and then we have a break, and then we have 2 chapters, and that's the end of the thingy, and then we have another break. Then we start our new part.
Do we start our new act, or do we start the intermission?
I guess it would be time for an intermission.
If we're gonna get an intermission, though, like, we would be getting the results of the warlords being abolished, whatever Blackbeard and Shanks were doing, right? We know that Luffy's the light that Im's decided to extinguish. So you know how we saw the world government ships here at Wano?
Yeah.
What if we get a whole new fleet coming?
World government fleet, navy fleet. What are you thinking?
I'm not sure, but you know how at the Reverie we had the what's the light you want to extinguish Im, and it was left ambiguous as he was thinking. The last chapter, it was pretty much confirmed that Luffy's the light now, that it's going to be extinguished, right?
Yes.
Well, the way they described it then is they were going to wipe out another island, like they did at God Valley.
Yeah.
So we had a little fleet showing up, and we're like, oh, that's really impressive. But since then, we've had a change in development, haven't we? So, and I don't know if it'll ever play a factor into Wano, because it probably might play more of a factor into us leaving Wano quickly.
Uh-huh.
But what if we get like Green Bull and a fleet of 50 ships sent out? Because I think the fleet sent to watch Whitebeard before Marineford was something like 25 ships or 50 ships.
Right, okay.
You know what I mean? What if essentially we get a buster call led by an actual admiral? Good time to introduce Green Bull, right? Sent to Wano?
I think that's possible because I think whatever's happening with the CP0 ships now is gonna happen next chapter.
I think they're gonna get beaten.
And maybe conclude in the next couple chapters. Yeah. And so if they all get wiped out by Zoe, then you hear like, you know, all the world government hears like a bunch of muffled screams and then and then radio silence. And especially also from the 2 CP0 agents, they don't hear anything. And it's like, okay, obviously they failed to stop Luffy. That's what they're going to be thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to have to like come in hard because for whatever reason we need to stop Luffy. They'll probably say it then even. Why they need to stop Luffy. They'll say, we need to stop him from blah, 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 blah. And then that'll be like another pretty big reveal. And then the world government it'll basically be attack Wano now.
Mm.
And then the other question is the Navy going to get involved or not? Because we've already had a couple of cutaways to the Navy saying like tossing, umming and ahhing about whether or not they should go to Wano. And with like the Admiral saying, oh, I'll go and all this stuff.
I think
we haven't seen any Navy right now. All we've seen is...
I think it depends on...
So is the CP going to call up the Navy and say, this is it, you're with us, full-scale war?
What if the
or is it just going to be the CP?
What if the world government ships get wiped out?
Hmm.
We know they're in direct communication with the Gorosei. Right?
Yep.
Gorosei order Marines to act as well. In conjunction with CP.
Yeah.
So we could get...
At that point, we're honestly looking at like end of series war.
Well, what if the end of series war initiates on open water to an extent? And what I mean by that is, we know that at the end of this arc, there's only one poneglyph we need to find One Piece. Right? We don't even know if it's possibly still in this arc. On this island.
Actually, there's a potential that Im has it.
Yep.
And that we don't get to be Pirate King until end of series war is over.
Mm-hmm. So
Because a lot of people, myself included, seem to think that he'll get the One Piece, and then because he finds the One Piece, that'll tell him, oh, okay, I need to save the world or whatever.
there's a duality of it, because you've got the statement from Whitebeard where it's once that treasure is found, a war will engulf the world that turns the world upside down. Right? Implying treasure first, fight second. Right? But we don't know, because we don't know the facts, because they don't know the facts. We know that the last time we saw the missing poneglyph, it was on Fishman Island. We know that the Fishman Island's meant to be destroyed within a year, right? From when Fishman Island arc was. We don't know what's going on. We don't know where we've got to go, when we've got to go there, and how we've got to go there, do we?
Mm-hmm.
But arguably, you could still find One Piece using 3 poneglyphs. Triangulating it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, maybe we do just find the 4th poneglyph and that's it. Maybe Nami's smart enough to try and think of a way to do it in another way. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, we just don't know. But, what I will say is, we had this set up with the world government potentially coming here. I think whether or not the Marines come here is strictly in relation to how well the other events have gone in their favour. So, have they crushed the warlords? Have they crushed the Revolutionary Army? And what has happened with Blackbeard and Shanks? Right?
Yeah.
Do you think the warlords have been beaten?
Not all. I don't think every single one will get beaten.
There's only 4 current warlords, and one of them's Kuma.
And I don't think Kuma's free.
Sorry, 5 current warlords and one of them's Kuma. So
I think Kuma's free.
There's Mihawk, Boa, Weevil, and Buggy.
Yeah. Look, I think Buggy, it doesn't matter. Because if he's captured, he'll escape and somehow be stronger from it. If he's not captured, then he'll somehow be stronger from it. He's Buggy. Look, with Boa, I think it only makes sense for her to get captured if it's already going to be set up for Luffy to go save her. I don't think it'll be Boa gets captured if he finds that out and goes to save her, and the whole arc is about saving Boa. I also don't think it's like she's going to get captured and Luffy's just not going to care.
So,
you know what I mean?
If we have a Marineford 2.0, right?
Yeah.
The question is, does it happen at New Marineford or does it happen at the Red Line? Right? Because there's a big distinction there. They executed Ace at Marineford because it was home turf and they had to come to them and it was a symbol of peace, right?
Yeah.
New Marineford isn't built for access like that for outside forces.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a dome, essentially, isn't it?
Yeah, essentially.
So, I don't think we could successfully have an infiltration situation there. You know what I mean?
New Marineford?
In New Marineford, no. New Marineford, though, is directly, it's within, half an hour or something of the Red Line, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty close.
So if they were going to do it anywhere, I feel like they'll do it at the top of the Red Line. At Merijoa in some capacity. Does that make sense? That might be bringing the fight... Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be bringing the fight too close to the Celestial Dragons. But, considering how Marineford went, think of the natural advantage of the only way to save your people is to climb up our escalators and up this giant wall that we can control the entire environment.
I think if the world, because it's the world government holding the execution, so I think it'll be done at a world government base. I don't think it'll be done at a Navy base.
But the world government bases are essentially Marineford. Merijoa.
Merijoa, and then I would probably consider like the gates of justice and things like that to be, because like the CP's 9 was there and stuff. No, there's also Navy Station there. Because that's like hardcore world controlled.
Because, like I said, I don't think New Marineford's set up for conflict well. It's not. It's a good island to execute people, but it's not a good island visually for us to invade to block an execution.
Yeah.
Aesthetically,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've got Sabo potentially being captured, and potentially the Revolutionary Commanders being captured. Right? So you could have, like, we've talked about the narrative, because what are the Scabbards and what's Odin? It's essentially a Yonko crew that had the Yonko die, and the crew was left standing, right?
Yeah.
So what's the opposite of that? A Yonko crew that had all the subordinates die, and the Yonko's the only one left standing. You could say that's kind of Kaido here, or you could say that that's Dragon if the Revolutionary Commanders all get beaten.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's like, Oda's always doing multiple parallel sort of stuff, right? It's just, from here on out, if we're capturing these people and taking them back somewhere to be executed, we're pissing off any allies of the warlords, any allies of the revolutionaries, and Luffy and his alliance, and everyone else that he gathers with him, right? For the Marines to do that, first things first, they've got to have the new SSG, and it's got to be something impactful and, like, actually terrifying. You know what I mean? It's actually got to be like, oh shit, how do we deal with this? Right? It has to play the role that the pacifistas did pre-time skip against the Whitebeard pirates.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For all these things to set up and align up, in all honesty, and this isn't even including whatever the hell is happening with Shanks and Blackbeard, I honestly feel like Oda could do the route and be like, the Revolutionary Army's not disbanded, but they're essentially defeated and in disarray because the four commanders got beaten, right?
Like with the warlords, right?
Yep.
Like the whole job of the warlords is basically just a rookie crush.
Yeah.
So like the SSG essentially has to be a system where it's like, because we have the SSG, pirates are no longer going to be a problem. We will just like sit them. We'll just like sit them at all the choke points, and no pirate will ever get
Rookie
past.
crush.
So yeah, and so it needs to be like a vibe where it's like, okay, the current generation of pirates, if they don't overtake the world government, are the last generation of pirates.
Yeah.
Because every other pirate is just going to get obliterated by the SSG.
So, and I agree with that completely and wholeheartedly. The problem is, though, to what the upper extent of them are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've got to at least be stronger than pre-time skip pacifistas, which beat pretty much everyone with a 200 mil bounty or under. Right? But they're replacing Mihawk in this situation. They didn't specifically say, we'll abolish all the warlords except Mihawk.
Well, the thing is that they don't necessarily have to have the same power as Mihawk. They just need to have the same, like, rookie crushing ability.
Yes.
Right? Because, like, they're not designed to take out the Yonko.
But they're also designed to help defend against the Yonko.
That's true, but then again, even the pacifistas helped.
Yes, but a heavy... and, like, we all admit, Mihawk's a heavy hitter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mihawk, and I'm not trying to downplay Boa in that, because I love her and she's ridiculously powerful, but it's like, if you look at the average power...
I'm not sending Boa against the Yonko.
Even then, if you look at the average power level of the remaining warlords, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're all at least beating a third or second commander, aren't they?
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Except for Buggy, but like Buggy in the entire story is the one outlier that it doesn't, like, you can just disregard him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But like, so I think the idea though is that, like, I don't think they have to have like Yonko killing or High Commander killing strength. I just think they have to be like no starting up pirate, no matter how talented, can deal with them.
But I would argue
like,
that's already
like,
what the pacifistas fulfilled pre-time skip and post-time skip.
True. So that's kind of what I'm meaning is like I just think they need to be like just a better version of the pacifistas.
Potentially.
Um,
But
because the main thing is that the warlords have been shown with like Dofi and all of that to be like unreliable and all this stuff, right? So it's not just that like, oh, we now have a power that just makes them completely obsolete. It's more like we have enough forces now that we don't need them anymore in general.
Kuma just
Not
brought
that
up
like they're completely obsolete.
Kuma just brought up an excellent point as well. A lot of the thing about why the warlords were so useful was also reputation. To discourage people, right? Which is why like the pacifistas are broken, and you got to think like, what are the pacifistas to the people, right? You had a former king turned pirate, killed, replicated, and he's now the face of your anti-pirate machine.
Yeah.
Like that there's a lot of psychological threat that goes into what a pacifista is.
Yeah.
To me,
so like having like a small army of androids walking and just shooting laser beams is like pretty ridiculous.
With the face
A
of the
normal
last
civilian
person that
would look at
disrespected
that.
you.
Yeah, a normal civilian would look at that and be like, "Yeah, there's no hope for pirates. Like,
Yeah.
they're just gonna get wasted."
Like, and I agree. Like, if you set one pacifista up on every island in the New World, on the Grand Line, you ain't like people aren't getting through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Could you imagine what a pacifista would have done at Whiskey Peak? And you got to think like Crocodile successfully rookie crushed at Whiskey Peak. Think of the fucking countless dead on the island. All those little crosses for grave sites. Like, how many thousands is Crocodile's crew killed?
Yeah, true.
These have got to like fulfill that same role, and I agree with you. Except the problem is the SSG that's out now, like the Pacifist is an already established program that existed and acknowledged and seen, right?
Mm-hmm.
The SSG that's replacing the Warlords is separate to that, seemingly. Now, it could be an upgraded Pacifista, you're right.
Yeah, but it's not the same.
But the purpose is slightly different. Because the remaining Warlords, like, remember, they quality checked the Warlords at the end of the pre-time skip. They got rid of Moria, they got rid of Crocodile.
Yeah.
They were like, if you can't fight someone at least on this level, you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Meaning they want the military might of them at this point.
Yeah.
Which is, to me, if you look at the remaining Warlords and exclude Buggy, because, like, the way they value and look at Buggy, it's like, it's so hard to determine. You know what I mean? Because do they know he's weak? Or do they go, he's a former Roger pirate, he's got giants on his crew, he's got a huge fleet, you know, he's stolen pirates from all around the world, like he's stolen pirates from the East Blue and turned captains into subordinates, turned, you know, stolen major players, like top 3 players from other Warlord crews and made them his crew members.
It's possible that they just looked at his feats and never challenged him, right? Like you wouldn't necessarily say like, oh yeah, you want to be a warlord, prove it, fight me, you know?
I mean, he's even got the reputation of being like Luffy and having gone against all 3 admirals and lived.
And all of his crew members are probably just like, yeah, he's so strong, even though they'd never really seen him fight. They'd just be like, yeah, he's amazing.
Just assume he's the outlier physically, right?
Yeah.
You have Mihawk, who's able to fight a Yonko. You have Weevil, who's been stated to be as strong as a young Yonko.
Yeah.
You have Kuma, who's null and void because he turned into the Pacifista program. And then you have Boa, who is the largest, like, outside of the Marines, in charge of the island and fleet of the largest amount of Haki users in the world. Plus, she has a broken-ass ability, has all 3 types of Haki, right? I'm not saying she's Yonko level in any capacity, but she gets a lot to her name that we haven't seen in feats. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, for the Marines to have already successfully gotten the Pacifista program, had it for 2 years, and it effectively Rookie Crush, what is like apart from Fujitora saying we need to get rid of the Warlords, they specifically said Vegapunk's done it now. I can finally get rid of the Warlords because of the new SSG.
Yes.
So to me,
I think it's a new time. It's a long time coming though. Like I don't necessarily know if it has to have as individual high tier killing power. Just more like there's no need for us to control the population of like to have other pirates to control the population of pirates. Because like if I look at it from Akinu's perspective, right, it's like the current Yonko are getting older and older and weaker and
yeah,
weaker. Whitebeard's already gone. The era is over. The only thing they need to do right now is make sure that no more new great pirates are born, and then pirates will essentially just die out.
yeah.
So if they can just purely rookie crush forever, and then just maintain admiral level people, so that the current Yonko can never make like a last ditch effort to.
I mean, even on top of that, Vice Admiral level people, like I've talked about this a fair bit lately, and probably more in the Discord and not with you. But like my viewpoint is like if you actually look at it as a whole, get rid of just like get rid of what you think you know about some power scaling, right?
Mm.
The Vice Admirals are all around Topiropa level. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, look at Drake. Drake's an ancient zone, uses swords, right? And we've seen that he's able to use. Have we even actually seen him be able to use any of the Flying Six powers?
Drake? Not that I know of.
Okay, so we haven't seen anything from Drake, right? So say he's the
He
bottom,
uses his bubbly sword, right?
right? But we see people like Momonga, Dalmatian, Onigumo using shave, finger pistol, being multiple sword users and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like they're all a really stock standard sort of thing because there's in the Vice Admirals there's two ranks of Vice Admiral, and I know this might sound really confusing. There's a base commander Vice Admiral, and then there's a Vice Admiral. Vice Admirals are under base commanders. Like Smoker was a Vice Admiral under Virgo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't know a lot of the ranks for people. We know that in charge of Old Marineford, as base commander, is Momonga. And Momonga is probably, outside of Garp and Suru, the one Vice Admiral that we've been constantly told is the strongest, I would argue.
Yeah, probably.
Like, he's portrayed as, if not number one, as equal in number one status, if that makes sense. Like, he's just... He's what we see as the standard.
It's either the strongest or the tippity top one of the strongest.
Yeah. Like, and I mean, the fact that he's in charge of Marineford now is a huge indicator of that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, shit. You see what Finger Pistol and Shave is doing to people like Drake. You know what I mean? All of them seemingly are capable of some form of the six powers. They have Haki, and they're all universally taught in swordsmanship, and some of them have zones.
Yes.
So it's like
that's the thing with the World Gov, right? Like, but the problem though is that like there's so much ocean, it can't be everywhere.
No. And for the most part, they're spread out heaps. They're in charge of their own bases. You know what I mean? It's not like you go to this base and it's like, oh my god, there's 6 Vice Admirals here. Oh, this is going to be such a hard fight this arc. It's not like that.
Most of their job would be like paperwork and leading people and stuff, right?
But
they won't. Yeah.
I do view them all as around that same sort of strength. Like, I feel like that's a fairly consistent thing. For the most part.
Agree.
Right? For the most part. But, like, you look at the Topiropo, and we were expecting a lot more from them than what we got, weren't we?
I was expecting more from all of Kaido's
Yeah. So, instead of, like, and I'm not discrediting the Straw Hats, because the Straw Hats did freaking phenomenal against them. But really, it was kind of a bit of a reality check, and it went, do you know what? The power creep is not necessarily as bad as people think. It's just some people that had high bounties may not have been as deserving because they were on a crew that made them get higher bounties.
I honestly just feel like it's like reverse power creep, where it's like they're trying to hype up that level of character so much that they like overhype all of the big
And it's a bit of a letdown.
then you go on to see other people at that who's supposedly at that same level, but they're no longer hyping them up.
Yep.
And now it's like, oh wait, these people will suck.
Yep.
Because here's the thing, to me, like I don't necessarily know if I would say that like all of Big Mom's crew are just like way better than all of Kaido's crew. But at the same time, in terms of showing, they absolutely are.
Do you know what I would say? All of Big Mom's crew is more skilled than Kaido's crew. But Kaido's crew, pound for pound, is stronger.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. But the thing is, like, based on feats, Big Mom's crew seemed crazy. Like, even like Daifuku was like, he was trying to chase after Carrot with his like genie, and he was like accidentally chopping ships like pretty much in half.
But then
It was like they were all so strong, and then.
But then you had people like even Page 1 slap Sanji through some buildings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, to me, because all the Topirobo have armor and observation haki, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we haven't seen any of them use it other than who's specifically trained to use it.
Yeah, that's like his entire fighting style.
Do you know what all that says to me? All that says to me is, just because someone's confirmed to have observation and armament doesn't mean they rely on it in a fight and can use it. We might start seeing a lot more people that have got confirmed haki that are more along the lines of Usopp, where they've used it once, doesn't mean it's part of their arsenal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas you look at the Big Mom Pirates, they've got weaker physically fruits than the Beast Pirates, but their fruits are a lot more harder to get around, and they all seem to have armament and observation haki that they use more proficiently to an extent. And I think that makes up for the fact that they don't have the raw strength of an ancient zone. So they're all probably equal. I would say skill-wise, the Big Mom commanders are better, and you could make the argument that some would beat some of the others, right? Because there's a very odd dynamic with them. You know what I mean? But it's like, Daifuku blocked Sanji when Sanji was just in base, right? And then overpowered Sanji a little bit. Page 1 did that to Sanji in a raid suit. There's a big difference there. You know what I mean? Yeah, they both overpowered Sanji, but it's like, what would you take away as a more impressive feat? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, it does balance out, but it's like, look, if you look at the top of it, right? Kaido's number 4 is Who's Who, right? Who's Who is a 546 million bounty, or 47 million bounty, right?
Yeah.
Do you know who you have on the flip side? 700 mil Perospero.
True.
Against Black Maria, who's under Who's Who, at 480 mil, you have Snack at 600 mil. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. That's true.
Go down again, right? You've got Sasaki at 470 mil, right? And here's a bit of a jump. You have not Mondor, French dude. How am I forgetting his name? Bird dude. Big Bird.
Yeah, Egg Guy.
Yep. You've got him at 446 or 426 mil. So he's a little bit under now. So see how like Big Mom was top heavy and then it dropped under just a bit? Right? So then you've got Ulti at 400 mil and you've got Peckham's at 330 mil. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And then against Drake and Page 1, you've got Oven and Daifuku.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're pretty equal. Big Mom goes top heavy, Kaido goes middle heavy, and then they go equal again. For the most part.
True.
You know what I mean? So it's like, and that's just on bounty, right? But it's like, I mean, it kind of translates to them as well, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
Except for the All-Stars. The All-Stars are the really annoying outlier because they just don't seem good.
See, I mean, look, Jack is... He's Jack the drag down for a reason. You know what I mean? Because it's like, if Jack had even... If Jack had even used Armament Haki on screen and was able to, like, overpower someone for a second, that alone might have been enough to give him a much bigger boost psychologically for people. The fact that every time on screen he was just shat on completely, even if he didn't die, it was such a, like... It hurt the Beast Pirate's portrayal there, did it not?
True.
And it's like, even though in a one-on-one fight I individually believe that Katakuri could beat King, if you actually took them both separately and you went who's harder to kill or who's harder to beat, I'd probably lean towards King, wouldn't you? Because if you did a big area of effect attack, King doesn't take damage. Katakuri would have to evade it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard. It's harder in a one-on-one to beat Katakuri, but overall, it's probably easier to beat Katakuri than it would be to beat King. You know what I mean? Like, if you got a flamethrower and torched a room, and King and Kat were in it, King's just sitting there, just like, doesn't matter that much. Katakuri's in there, just like, fucking, I gotta make a barrier, I gotta protect myself, or I gotta evade it, like, You know what I mean? And look, that's coming from me. You know how much I hype up Katakuri. You know what I mean? It's like Queen and Smoothie, I'm not going to lie. Queen has just had a better portrayal. Just definitively, because he's done more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like look, low-key, if they were to have a crew fight, right? I'd say that probably Big Mum's sub-commanders win. And if we got to the commanders, Cracker's fucking up Jack. Katakuri's probably in a high diff fight to extreme high diff fight beating King. But Queen is probably just shooting out some poison and fucking the shit up out of Smoothie. And then moving on to either fight Cracker, in which case he probably beats Cracker too, or going to help King fight Katakuri. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's an equal, but it's a shifting dynamic in those two crews. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It honestly comes down to preference and matchup. And realistically, if they were ever going to do anything like that, it would have already happened. So we're never going to get to see it. All we can do is take a snapshot of how they are in this moment and be like, that's how I feel they are in terms of strength. Alright, Warlords also thrive off of reputation. That's why Gecko Moria was able to hold onto his title even after he lost to Luffy. The criteria for Warlords probably changed drastically since Akainu became Fleet Admiral, and we know he values power a whole lot more. That's a good point. Also, influence. I always viewed that Big Mum's forces were more meticulous and variety-based, when Kaido being more pure power. That said, Big Mum pirates, I'd wager, have been around longer than Kaido's. Jack is nicknamed as the Drought because he's drive people's expectations. I like that. I really believe that Big Mum and Katakuri are near to each other power-wise, whereas King and Kaido are a gap. I think Smoothie will drain Queen. I mean, Smoothie could drain Queen, but I mean, it's not necessarily going to hurt Queen because Queen's a robot. Like, we saw Sanji kick Queen's limbs, and it didn't hurt him or affect his fighting, did it? So it's like, if Smoothie's here, tries to juice Queen, she juices his robot arm, it falls off, and it's like, oh shit, laser out the mouth. What does Smoothie do?
Yeah, Smoothie's really hard to power scale because, like, realistically, it's like all we think is like, okay, but if she touches you, she can just like absorb, you just dead. But it's like, okay, cool, but like, does that mean that you're saying, let's say okay, well, Katakuri's stronger than Smoothie. Okay, does that mean Smoothie can never touch Katakuri?
See,
or
my hypothesis is that Smoothie's main forte of fighting is actually to gigantify herself, and is actually like brute strength based. I think.
Here's an example, right? Like, Smoothie is second division commander level, right?
Yep.
We'd say Kid is probably like above second division.
Yep.
So, if Smoothie and Law, or Big Mom, do they just like, Law just blinks Smoothie at her and then Smoothie just one-shots her by juicifying her completely? It's like, how the hell does Smoothie's power work?
It probably works more like crocodiles, whereas like if she grabs your arm, she juices your arm if you're a top tier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in which case, it's just like, oh my god, give me a drink. Dun-dun-dun-dun, pop your arm back on.
Does it like take the liquid out of your arm, or does it literally turn your entire arm into liquid? So essentially, like taking your arm off.
See, it's hard because it's like juicing something. You squeeze it and get the juice out of it, but whatever she squeezes, even if it doesn't physically have juice in it, it turns to juice.
Exactly. That's the thing. She can turn the rock to juice. So she grabbed your arm. She could theoretically turn the skin and everything under it
To juice.
to juice. And so she's literally just rips your arm off. Essentially, turns into liquid.
Mm-hmm. And not to mention, and like I was saying before, like we saw her when she was tracing the straw house. She tried to gigantify herself because she turns into a giant and fights like a giant with massive projectile slashes, right? And I'm not going to give her a power she doesn't have, but think of it like this, right? She's got the sponge fruit, right? Where she like, soaks stuff up like a sponge and liquefies stuff like that. Or I think it was something like that because it was something weird like that, wasn't it?
Smoothie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah, something to do with like sponge or squeeze. Yeah.
What's to say that when she's in a giant form that she doesn't actually take less damage because she's like a sponge. She soaks up more impacts.
Oh, right.
You know what I mean? Because you got to think, we actually haven't ever seen her fight. We saw her deal with fodder where she just grabbed them and juiced them, and then the one time we see her go to fight, she goes gigantification and starts doing massive slashes, and they're like, "You can't fight here."
Yeah.
So it's like, she is the biggest X factor of the Big Mom Pirates crew because as a second division commander, right, that's got a higher bounty than Cracker, and Cracker has a hell of a lot going for him as a combatant, right? The fact that it's cleanly smoothie over him by like 70 mil, there's a story there. You know what I mean? That being said, there is a whole thing that they don't even know that Cracker isn't actually the Biscuit himself. So realistically, if they knew that, they would probably give him they might even give him a bounty bump. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but then again, if they knew how easy it was to actually take him out,
yeah,
it would be a bounty reduction.
Yeah. Like
they probably think that he himself is that hard.
Yeah. So there's pros and cons for it in either way. Look, we've been going for 2 hours and 2 hours and 40 minutes now. I think we might wrap up the stream. How do you feel?
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting to go this long, but you know what? I'm happy I did. We haven't done a stream in a minute, and we did talk about a few different things. Is there anything you want to say for next week, considering there's no break?
No, I'm keen for it. Keen for more awesome. I think we're getting more information, more juicy information.
Ooh, have we had Sad Drunk Kaido yet?
Either Kaido or CP0 is going to say something.
Have we had a Sad Drunk Kaido yet?
Yeah, we have. It was like one of the first ones.
I wonder if we go back to that. Right? And maybe, instead of him actually hurting CP0 here, what if he lets out a Conqueror's Haki scream in sadness?
Yeah, right.
And it knocks out CP0 member here. Because it's just way more potent than a normal one. Like, even the commanders on Big Mom's crew were getting hurt by hers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I could see something like that potentially happening. Like I said, though, I think the next handful of chapters, by chapter 1045, the act will end, if it's going to end ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Kuma, do you have your last question for the stream? Ooh, okay. We've got a few things here. Strongest female is Big Mom, Boa, Yamato, Smoothie, Ulti, Stussy, Robin, Koala, Hina, Carrot, Impel Down Girl. You're forgetting Suru in there, and you're forgetting Momosagi.
And Yamato second.
I would actually say Boa's over Yamato. Still. Yeah, I would. Boa I mean, for starters, Boa still could probably have Advanced Conqueror's Haki. right? And second of all, her Devil Fruit in a high tier manner is still a series of one-shot abilities. Like,
Yeah, but one-shot abilities that we would assume aren't going to work on anyone of note.
it's hard.
Just like in terms of narrative, like it's a cop out, right?
Who are my top 5 villains with a brief reason as to why? I was gonna say my number 1, but do you know what? I'll say that Kaido might be my number 1 for now. I don't necessarily feel that yet, but so far Kaido has been such a fun villain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll say my top 5 villains are Kaido, Big Mom, because Big Mom has just been consistently impressive, right? I don't think you can go too much further away from Doflamingo, because Doflamingo is a fucking phenomenal villain in One Piece, right? Would you classify Katakuri as a villain?
Yes.
Yes? Then I'll have to say Katakuri, because I absolutely love Katakuri like crazy, and Crocoboy, right? With an honorable mention being NL, because NL really brought a different kind of threat to the world of One Piece, in my opinion. The reason why I've got NL there, different kind of threat, purely menacing, really played into the god aspect of it. It was phenomenal. The reason why I've got Crocodile is because he was the first major antagonist that we just didn't beat. He was the first major leader of an organization. And, like, if you ever go back and reread the Crocodile fight, like, he's pretty high tier. Like, he was turning entire massive buildings into sand. He was being able to control the desert, doing sandstorms, doing massive sand slashes, drying out people like a mummy. And he was a really overconfident guy. Like, he was letting people spend 3 minutes fighting him to demoralize them before he killed them. Where he just stood there. Because he knew they didn't have Haki. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The reason why Katakuri is because Katakuri, up until this Kaido fight, was the best fight in the entire series. I fucking love it, right? I love it. I like it so much more than the Rob Lucci fight and stuff like that. Like the choreography, the character, I loved it. Every aspect of it. Big Mom has just been so menacing and such a constant thorn in our side. But she every time I thought I was done with her, she would do something else and I'd fall in love with her again. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And Kaido is fucking Kaido. Like, he's a beast. You know what I mean? And I will 100% give honorable mentions to Akainu and Blackbeard. The only reason they're not on here is because they haven't done anything to be the main villain for me yet.
Yeah, they haven't had enough story to them.
Like, to me, they're not villains yet. They were antagonists for other characters. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I say a villain so far, and that's why I asked about if Katakuri is a villain, because it's like it's got to be a direct conflict for Luffy. And I mean, sorry, I didn't mention them there again properly. I didn't give them a description. Doflamingo is literally evil Jesus. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Dofi's pretty cool.
And Dofi is arguably the most villainous character in the entire story, considering he was manipulating Big Mom, manipulating Kaido. There's potential that he was manipulating Whitebeard. He was manipulating the world government, the CP0 agencies. He had every bit of honey in his jar.
I think Dofi was hurt a lot by the poor pacing of the arc that he's in.
I think a lot of that poor pacing disappears when you get to read the entire thing in bulk. Watching the anime was terrible for pacing and filler. Yeah. And it was already, even in the manga, a padded out arc.
Yeah. I think even if you watch the anime in bulk, it's still so badly paced that it's still bad.
Yeah.
But I think the manga, if you read it in bulk, would be better.
Yeah.
But still, it's like, I mean, part of being a good mangaka is like pacing.
I mean,
each week well, right?
The first 25 chapters finish the Colosseum. The next 25 chapters incorporated all the goings on the world and started the whole game and the fighting, right? The third half of it, the 25 chapters, dealt with everyone else beating everyone else, right? And the last 25 chapters pretty much ended with, like, the final hit of every fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, when you look at it like that, especially with, like, how long arcs are now, it's really digestible. At the time, it was the longest arc. It was fatiguing. We weren't used to it. And it wasn't as well paced as some other arcs. You know what I mean?
I just think, like, if you compare this arc, it's like every chapter, like, how many 10 out of 10 chapters have there been? I get, like, this arc is a lot higher stakes, so it's easier to make a 10 out of 10 chapter, because they're, like, they're
See,
the climax of all these things that have been built up for ages. But, like, a lot of the chapters / episodes of that arc was, you just kind of, like, oh, we're trying to get from platform 3 to platform 2. Oh no, there's a bunch of nutcrackers in the way. Let's spend 5 chapters trying to walk past a bunch of nutcrackers.
well, yeah, so that's the difference. It's like 5 episodes doing that. It's 1 chapter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
but the point being that
it hurts. It hurts.
necessary.
Yeah. And it didn't help to some extent that it was the first arc where every faction made an appearance, because it was realistically the first arc in the New World. So, you had to establish the pirates, you had to establish the Marines, you had to establish the Revolutionary Armies, how all 3 of them interacted with each other, and then you also sprinkled on the fact that there's no arc where the Yonkos don't have a presence, right, with Big Mom. And then you had to have the whole story of the Straw Hats mixed in with the plight of the island and introducing the Straw Hat Ram fleet. Like, I actually like Dressrosa more because I look at it now and I go, it was supposed to be chaotic. And it makes it better. If you think, like, because all pre-time skip, everything was self-contained in an arc. And there was, like, loose hanging plot threads that went from arc to arc, right? You hit Dressrosa, and you're setting up Wano. You're setting up, Zoe. You're setting up the Reverie arc. Like, they're setting up so many arcs, doing stuff that's interacting for each one of those arcs, and it's super chaotic, and everything's going on all at once. And it was the first time that ever happened in One Piece, and I don't think people were used to it and expected it and necessarily liked it.
Yeah.
But now, if you can go back and reread it in bulk, you'll probably sit there and you'll be like, such a great arc. You know what I mean?
I read the fight, the Luffy Dofi fight, and that was really good. But then again, I never really had any issues with the pacing of that fight. It was more the fact that I think it was like, the thing was is that it wasn't like a gradual moving towards it. It was the entire time, the objective that was told to everyone was, we need to get to the top so that we can fight Dofi.
Yeah.
Or we need to get to the top so we can help, blah, blah, blah. And so you're sitting there, you're just waiting for them to get to the top, And so at that point, like, every time you throw something new in, like, oh, now there's these nut-cracking soldiers, it's just an obstacle. It's just annoying. And you just want them to go away.
It felt just like a pad.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas, like with things like, for example, with the Wano arc, there has been kind of like an interesting thing that you want to see coming up in the next 2 chapters.
I think what's actually made the difference, realistically, to me as well, because I think Wano is actually a lot more similar to Dressrosa than people would like to admit. But the difference being, Wano, you weren't introducing as many new characters. Oda utilized more pre-established characters like the Supernova.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we didn't have to meet Big Mom for the first time in Wano. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even
that was another thing with the Dressrosa thing, is I did not give a shit about any of the random, because I didn't think they were going to be long-time characters. Right?
So many people got introduced, and it just felt like, please piss off.
Yeah, it was literally just like, to me, it was like a bunch of slow dudes.
Mm-hmm. And I fully understand that, which is why I feel like Oda learnt from that, and which is why in Wano it's like instead of having people that felt like Foxy, the Foxy people are like Apu, Drake, and Hawkins.
Yeah.
And that really makes a massive difference because people were hyped for those people because they've been set up for so long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like if we finally get to the final war of final war of One Piece, and it's against the world government. We've already set up all the allies, so we already know who we give a shit about, right?
Yeah, and that's true as well because, like, realistically, like we cared when we saw Hawkins.
Yeah.
But if I didn't know Hawkins before this arc, based on what I saw from Hawkins in this arc, I would not care about him at all.
Nah.
His showing was like pretty bad.
Yeah.
But because we had that like
the build up
knowledge about him, every time Hawkins did something, I was like really interested.
Especially because of the relative power scaling of like seeing Hawkins dealing with Kizaru pre-time skip, seeing Drake and Apu trying to deal with a pacifista pre-time skip. You had more going for you. Where you're like, oh, they're not weak. Whereas you get to Dressrosa and it's like Block A was off-screen beaten by Burgess. We didn't even get a single named person other than Burgess. So who do we give a shit about? Then in Luffy's block, Luffy blew through every single person but Don Chinjiao and then beat Don Chinjiao like it was nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like everyone that was in Luffy's block was sort of like, I don't give a shit about you. And then you had people like Bartolomeo, and Bartolomeo was cool, but realistically, Bartolomeo wasn't even a good fighter. It was just like, my power beats you, bye. You know what I mean? It was a lot less interesting, whereas the good thing about Wano is we've gotten fleshed out fights for some of these side characters. Have we gotten fleshed out fights for all the side characters that I wanted? No. I wanted to see Heat and Wire from Kids Crew do something. I wanted to see Brooke do something. You know what I mean? But honestly, we've gotten enough from other people that we hadn't seen that I can't complain. I mean, I got to see so many Supernova fight this arc. You know what I'm saying? All right, we're going to wrap the stream up there. Thank you for coming. Like I said, this was a great chapter. So much great setup. The next chapter, or the next couple of chapters, are going to be insane. Are they not?
Yeah, they're going to be good.
Going to be so hyped for them. But yeah, if you haven't done so already, like the stream, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for more notifications for content like this. All right, all that good stuff. Join the Discord. The link to the Discord is in the description down below. All right, just have fun. You get to talk to us all a lot more frequently down there as well. If you ever want to just have random off-stream sort of discussions and bounce ideas back and forth, we're a lot more vocal down there, especially through the week. But peace, nothing but love, nothing but respect. Have a damn good day. Say goodbye, eggs for brekkie.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good one.